So anyone talking about someone else already?
No.
We're on. All right. I would like to call this meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Seco
Here.
Dillon
Here.
Ekman present. Slaughter
Here.
Stimson Stuckey here and Willie.
Here.
All right. So let's just jump right in, huh? So start a work session on kind of our goals, where we think short-term rental regulations, how we want our town to look with it. Do you want to talk anything about that? About what you said?
If I could.
Of course.
The real purpose is to find out how the board feels about the fit, if you will, short-term rentals in the community. We have for many, many years been tapped around edges of regulations saying, oh, we don't like trash cans, so we need to regulate trash cans. We don't like this, we need to regulate parking, the lighting, fire. We've done that over and over again. We never sat down and said how we want to support them or not support them, if we're concerned about how they might fit into the community. What benefits do they bring to us? What detriments do they bring to us? Are there certain types or types of STRs that don't work well with us, others that do? You've never had a chance to sit down and talk about how you feel about STRs so that when Chad and I draft regulations, we know what the policy, call it that, visions, goals of the board are, so it helps guide us in what we're going to put on paper. We don't know how you feel about them, then it's harder to write regulations. But you never had that chance to sit down and talk about, here's what I think about STRs. So it really requires the entire board to give their opinions, and so that we can hear them. If you feel very strongly about something that the board members say, and you believe that should be more formal in its declaration, you can ask the mayor to assess the what we call consensus.
Can you grab that door handle, sir? Yeah, but no one can give you that. So
Mario will take care of it.
there you go.
So it's important to get a real sense of what the majority or consensus of the board feels about short-term in all its aspects. So there's really nothing, saw my memo, I hope you had a chance to look at the questions in there that are the types of questions you can direct with. But hearing from you, getting the consensus from you, the majority or consensus of the board feels, helps us draft regulations as you discuss the policy about how you feel, how it fit. Will probably be questions that I might ask to help clarify where it is you sit. Say you the board. So everybody needs to chime in, give their opinion. Your opinion differs from somebody else, it's fine. That's what this is all about. And lastly, I'm not here to kind of dictate. I would never do this to any client, dictate where you should go on this. If the conclusion were to be just making this stuff up, suggesting for people listening in, if the conclusion were to be we don't want STRs at all in the community, nothing with the name STR should be in the community, that's fine. You can do that. I will do what you want, what your direction is. If you say we love STRs and we wish the entire town was STRs, that's fine too. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have a dog in this race. I just need to know how you feel about STRs and how they fit, which types fit best for you, what kind of larger scale regulations you'd like to see. I'm not talking about trash cans.
Perfect. I think it is important that we hear from everyone on this topic. So I don't know how you guys kind of want to do this. We could kind of go down. I mean, does the board view STRs as a form of residential use or commercial use?
Commercial.
Okay.
I'd like to, I think there needs to be another category. If there's residential, certainly is commercial, which in my opinion is someone who runs it as a business, to make profit. And then there's a true second home, where someone short-term rents to help offset the costs. I'd like to see that second home or vacation home in there. I'm sure we could come up with some more, but for the sake of this conversation, those I think are applicable.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if it's a full-time 365, 24/7 short-term rental, you consider that to be a commercial use.
More or less, Bob. I mean, basically, you guys all probably know that when you report to the IRS, if you have an investment property, you're using it less than 2 weeks out of the year, you're participating in the management. A second home, technically, unless you report it that way, is not reported as an investment property, the second home. So I think it's important to differentiate the two. Commercial is for profit. Second home, in my opinion, the spirit is to help offset costs and justify the purchase. It's not for profit.
I'm confused now then. If I live half time in my residence, I had a short-term rented out half of the time, and I make money off of it, cash, okay? It covers more than the expense. I mean, that part of it.
I think it's the spirit of it, Bob. There's people that, I think we kind of know those people that are clearly doing it to make a profit. Bought the home with the intent of short-term renting it all the time and making a profit. They're really not interested in it as a second home. If someone happens to buy it, which in my experience, most of the people out there buy them as a second home for their family to enjoy, it's not something they need. They're not going into it knowing that they're going to make money on this deal, except maybe on appreciation down the road. But it helps them justify the purchase by being able to offset costs. Ideally, they'd like to offset their property taxes, their maintenance, their utilities. Will they make a little extra money? Possibly. But I don't think there's a difference between that person and the person who's doing it for profit. Because I don't consider when people use the term commercial, just because they're short-term renting it, I don't think that's a fair definition. Because it gives the implication that they're running it as a business. I don't think that's their intent. For a lot of people. I'd say for the majority of people.
Majority of people
That are running it as a business?
Are not running it as a business.
See, I would actually strongly disagree. And that's just because none of the ones around me are they're running businesses. They don't come up there, they don't say they were bought or built solely to be a business.
That's my point.
And I think that any STR at any point is still a business. You're trading a service for money. And that is by definition.
So what about people with long-term rent? Is that a business?
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about when you report your taxes on the second home versus an investment property? Do you know what the difference?
Well, I don't have either, so no.
Okay. Investment property technically is an investment, 1031 exchanges are applicable. IRS looks at it, you can use it.
I mean, I understand how the IRS looks at it, it's still a business. Are you paying taxes on it?
You're paying taxes differently.
But you pay a tax on income because you're getting income from an STR. An STR is a business, and it's okay to be a business. I don't think it's a negative thing to have a business. A lot of people run businesses out of their
What
homes.
difference does it make to you to what term you use? I think commercial business has a negative.
We have varying opinions on it. I'm just letting you know that I look at it as a short-term rental as a business. It is a business through and through.
But it's an intent also.
The intent is to make money.
The intent when all of this started was for a person who lived in a house to rent out a room of their house or to swap houses with someone in France so that they could have 2 weeks in France and that person could have 2 weeks here. That was the nexus of short-term rentals. And then it morphed into VRBO and Airbnb and became what we have now, which is vastly different from how it started. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying that from its intent, it has turned into what to my mind is clearly a business. And the people that I know that are close by me that short-term rent their house, they hope to live here one day. They're doing it to offset costs and all of the things that you said, Barry. But they rarely use it themselves. They come up here to clean it. That's part of their helping to offset costs is if they don't have to pay a cleaner if they come and clean it themselves. And they hope to live here one day. Will they ever? Honestly, I don't know. But I know that, you know, his business has provided a new boiler and a trip to Costa Rica and a few other things. And they rent it out 24/7, 365.
Well, it's a matter of advertising and all that as well. They have to go out there on all these different websites and advertising in a more active manner. It's the active versus passive as well. Long-term rent is much more passive. You just find your tenant, they're in, and you don't deal with it for a year or 2 years, possibly more. 30 days is not considered short-term rental, in our town, but that might be a little bit more.
Maybe I can take off the issue of long-term rental, because that's really not
Yeah.
part of the discussion. Here's the difference. Anything over 30 days is long-term rental. Typically long-term rental, like a year, right? But the way the courts look at long-term rental is it is a residential use, and we cannot say no to that. If somebody wants to rent their house for long-term, they're permitted to do so, and we cannot say no. We can say no to short-term rental. Perspective of the court is it's more akin to commercial use and has a greater impact. So let's take long-term rental off. It's really
It's all about
established.
And that's why I see it as business. It's the differences that are present.
Well, so having been in the real estate business for 40 years, selling a lot of these homes, I know what most of these people's intent is. And
I think that's a huge supposition. Frankly. I don't think that 40 years in the real estate business gives you an overarching keen insight into their intentions. But having said that, apologize for the interruption. Please proceed.
I guess I beg to differ. I mean, that's my business. I'm selling second homes to people primarily, and I know what they do with their homes and why they short-term rent. I mean, I think you could talk to most, and being in the business for 40 years, and it does give an indication. I probably have a better indication of what people are doing and their intent. Intent is the word. Most people don't need to, they can afford the house without short-term renting. They do it to help. It's not something that they're
So if
not.
they don't need to, it's business.
It's a justification.
Okay, perfect. And just so you know, the way that I would like this to work tonight is like, I want to hear from everybody, right? So I love that you made a point, you started to
Everyone
talk.
debating with me.
All right, we're gonna move on, not to me. We're gonna go down the line. So thank you,
Is it
Barney.
my turn? I don't know if you guys can see me. My video shorted out. I might join back in. And I just wanted to say the question is, for me, it's a form of residential use or commercial use. I believe it's a commercial use.
Thanks.
I think I was speaking of the advertisement and all the active, requirements of it makes it a business or commercial use.
I think I go back and forth honestly about it. I think that it is a case by case basis, but we cannot analyze it that way. And I think it's more of people's issues are complaints to neighbors and negatives to the town. That's very valuable, and we should respect that. And also use of resources. But something that I've dealt with at my house because I do rent my house and I live on my property. So I'm a very unique case. And I have 25 parking places and I do the trash myself and I'm always there. So nothing really ever happens at the place. It's very different. But at the same time, things that kick in for me about the difference is things like Upper Blue Sanitation. They charge me 45% more on my sewer bill, even though the last 8 rentals I have in May did not rent for 5 whole weeks. And every rental 3 weeks before that and since then has been 2 people. As your sewer tap fee, you pay 2 people per bedroom for your fee. But their for-profit business has voted it that we pay more. And little things like that are things that matter to me. But then there's people that we're not enforcing the rules we already have. And that is also a problem. I think for me, it's more of an enforcement than anything. And if anything, the market in Airbnb is fairly flooded right now. And prices in the last 4 years are down 30% at least. And I think it's starting to correct itself. And I think we could have some new rules and revise some we have, but just really go to the enforcement. In my opinion.
So I think I like some of the points Barry made. I do understand that, especially as we look historically over what we deal with in Summit County. I do think what you're saying was true on a more regular basis, right? This was somebody's home, buying his vacation home. We can offset some costs with this. Anecdotally, just what we saw in the room in our last meeting, we had a couple who were Summit County residents. They talked about how many things they did for Summit County, how involved in this community they were, what organizations they volunteered for, were involved in, on and on, right? All of these great things that we would love to have as a neighbor. And then they said, we live in this other part of Summit County, but we want to park our piggy bank in the river. And we heard the same thing from the other, anecdotally, right? I think it's just the two people that spoke. He was a dad. I think they lived in Kansas City, as I recall, Missouri. And it was the same thing. He talked about his kids going to a baseball game. All of these things that do, all of these, the people that I would love to have as a neighbor, right? It's the same thing. I want to park my piggy bank in the river. I don't want to park myself, my family. I don't want to become part of your community. But I want to benefit from what you guys have. And I think that's, for me, that's where I run into the biggest problem, right? People want to join this community like you're talking about. It's great, right? Even if you want to join on a very part-time basis, it's a super unique place to live. And you say, I want to join it for a month a year or 2 months a year, and I want to offset some of those costs. I have to ask Bob or speak to Bob. Like, I don't know how you can legislate intent. What are you intending to do with this property? Because we're going to make a set of rules if you intend to use it like this, and we're going to make a set of rules if you intend to use it like this. I think I don't see how you thread that needle personally. So I look at these short-term rentals. It's a really unique business. It's a business that we don't allow any other businesses, right? You can't start a bakery on Spruce Creek Road, right? You can't start a drive-through liquor store. You have all these businesses that you can't do. But we have this one that fits into this niche, and it's because it pays the town of Blue River, it pays Chad, it pays us, it pays the chief, right? So we sort of allowed it to come into our community and said, well, this one business is very different because we had an immediate cash benefit from it. To me, I guess if I had to answer the question, it's a more commercial use. And I don't say that as a bad thing. If I'm looking at it from a 50,000 foot view, it is a much more commercial use than residential use.
Thank you. And with regard to intent, you're right, it would be difficult to have a regulation that says your intent is what guides whether you're allowed here or not. Because think about the fact that I can buy the place and intend to stay there half a year rented out. And that changes over time. And now I'm never going to live there, and I tend to completely rent out 24/7. The intent needle moves. So you go to that place and knock on the door and say, you're done, can't be an STR. It's impossible pretty much to regulate on that basis.
You guys want to touch on the benefits and negatives? I think we kind of always talk about that. We talk about the water usage. We talk about all that. I don't know if that's just beating a dead horse or if someone really has something that they feel that we haven't as a board discussed yet. Is it a negative or a positive for SDR? I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, obviously, the financial benefit of the town is, I know one of the emails that I got was some guy freaking out that we were going to go broke as a town. It's like, well, we're not necessarily saying we are not saying we're not ever going to have an STR again. We're just imagining how it looks. So I understand that it does pay all the bills, but does anyone have anything that, as a board, we have not discussed as either a benefit or a negative on short-term rentals? Just something we haven't discussed. I know we've kind of got around it. Bob wants to go.
You've regulated all the negatives pretty much.
I mean, of the numbers that come in, what percentage of our income is from short term? It's like 330 30,000 a year. Something.
Ballpark, it's hard to tell this year because of the new ordinance. It did completely kind of shift the numbers. And then this business moratorium came in place. And potentially with this, whatever software is implemented in that, that could certainly change the landscape again. But you are correct. That is the ballpark estimate that was generated.
What's the ballpark for other incomes? Was it pretty?
The 3.2-ish.
And what was SDR, sorry?
330,000.
Well, that's it.
About 350 somewhere in there. It's a little higher now than it used to be because of the increase in the registration.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
shocking.
yes. So depends on how you look at it by individual fund or if you look at it as a holistic approach of all the income that comes.
Does anyone else have any negative benefit or?
Well, this is Jody. I just wanted, I know there's positive impacts and you've just mentioned them. What I don't think we've really touched on is a lot of the negatives. Like we've been in a drought for 20 years. We're in a huge drought right now. Putting 20 people in a home that is on a sewer or septic and a well just doesn't fit into a well isn't meant to have, 20 people in a house the day. That's not what it was. Every well has a permit. Let's say it's 3 bedrooms. So when you put 3 bedrooms, but you put however many people are going in these houses, it's just a big impact on everything that happens. Like, I don't want my well to go dry and nobody else does. Negative impacts are that I don't know some of my neighbors anymore. It's somebody else every day. Like we used to have a residential character that we've lost. Winter dragging people out of ditches because they don't know how to drive. Like there are positives, but I think that the negatives outweigh the positives.
I mean, on the note of the water, the worst thing that happened to our community is the sewage treatment plant. All the water goes to Denver Water in the lake now. Nothing stays in our ground. Once it goes
Sure,
into the
yeah,
sewage,
so running out of water is a big problem.
Doesn't go into the sewer line and down to the plant right now, or into the river for that matter. It goes into the ground, giant septic system.
right here.
Only for a little bit
Yeah.
longer, a month or
It's
something.
the town, the sanitation will probably come here and discuss that other option, but for now, it goes into the ground, not the river. And I think.
For our part.
Huh?
Yeah, that's
Certain-
why we have a lift station over there is because they.
Is your neighbor gonna come to me?
No, I'm not. I'm still septic.
Oh, you guys are also septic in the ground.
You know, it
You don't have
depends
water,
what
do you?
part of,
No,
what
we
part
don't.
of the river you're
Yeah,
in.
We do not have.
So, sorry, that's I don't have that.
You know,
Our neighbor does not.
as far as the pros and the cons, I understand the negatives on short-term rentals. I think it's very hard to quantify water use. I think it's easier to quantify the pressure put on a septic system because they're designed by engineers by the number of bedrooms. And I think it's pretty easy to establish the number of people, which is 2 per room, which is what a septic system is designed for. And we probably should design, maybe occupancy should be based kind of around septic systems and not so much how much pressure they're putting on a well. Nobody here knows the reality of what's going on with the use and the impacts on our wells. It's completely subjective. But in terms of the benefits of short-term rentals, again, I go back to the spirit. Short-term rentals are what built this community. We're part of a larger community of Breckenridge. All those nice things we have, 27-hole golf course, the rec center, the hockey arena, the beautiful mountain bike trails, that's all a product of second homeowners. We wouldn't have those things if it wasn't for second homeowners. And a lot of the second homeowners have short-term rented. A lot of the people who bought the homes up here and who live here now permanently came here as a short-term renter with their family. And then they bought a home. And then maybe they eventually moved here full time. So to say that short-term rentals are a new thing, they aren't. We had short-term rentals way before we had licensing. People have been short-term renting since the beginning of the ski resort. So people sometimes act like it's a new thing. It's not. And there are benefits to it. I would 100% agree. We just have to manage our short-term rentals And I don't like it when people disrupt our neighbors and make it hard. Everybody should be able to live a nice lifestyle in the mountains, which is why we came down pretty hard and it was pretty direct. If you have more than one home, you get one license. That's it. Which goes back to that, I think somebody's intent using this commercial property. But I think as a community that we live in, I live in the same subdivision that Jody lives in. We're neighbors, we're friends. Doug O'Brien across the street. Nick's down. I don't see you very much, Nick. You're down at the other end of the subdivision. But I still feel like it's a neighborhood. I have short-term renters around me. And I've had short-term rentals, second home, short-term rentals around me since I built my house in 2000. It still feels like a neighborhood to me. The greens down the road. There's a lot of people that I see there, Jody, that I still feel. I mean, it's been a second home, vacation home type resort community since the scary started. And I feel it's unfair to just because we live there now, we have the homes, all of a sudden say short-term rental. And I think most people are there that have a second home and rent it, are there with the same spirit of enjoying the mountains and respecting their neighbors and their property and your property and my property, the same as we do. I just hate to see short-term renters just because they short-term rent, it's some kind of a negative thing. I think we've got to manage them and make sure people are following the rules. But I don't know. I don't get the part about we're losing our character. I've lived here too.
A lot of what you've said is outside of Blue River. I guess I'm looking at Blue River. What you talked about was Breckenridge. This used to be a lot of second homes, and a lot of the workforce lived in Blue River. That workforce is disappearing. Several of my neighbors in the last couple of years have left. Several of them due to the influence and impact of short-term rentals on their life and daily living. Waking up their children in the middle of the night from the noise. So the kids aren't sleeping, they're not getting to school, they're getting sick because of the interruption, having some real issues. I'm not making this up. This is the truth. I have another neighbor that's already put their home on the market because they can't handle, like someone said, you don't have a neighbor anymore. You have this constant turnover. You don't know who it is over there. And they're getting stuck in the driveway. They're getting stuck in your driveway, not even their own. I live at the end of the street. It is blocked because of people in inappropriate vehicles, which is a whole nother enforcement type issue as well. And so is the noise. Some owners of these short-term rentals definitely manage their property better than others. I have one neighbor that has put cameras in to look at their driveway so they can tell how many vehicles are pulling in or out. They've also put in a noise monitoring station so they can tell if the volume is too high at 9 p.m. or whenever the quiet hours are, or if there's a lot. So there are other ways to kind of impact that as well. But it is hard. I have to walk further and further down my street every year to find an actual neighbor to help if I need something, a dog sitter, somebody to let the dog out while I'm gone that day, or anything. So it is impacting the character of my street and the way of my life. I've lived in my house 20 years there, so I've seen a lot of them come and go. I haven't moved out of it in that time, and I'm at the end of the road, so I drive past every one of them every day and walk down there. And I do like having some neighbors, and I have second homeowners that I really like, and I know some of the short-term rental owners, but I do see more and more they are bought for the piggy bank than the second homeowner type person. That I know what you're talking about. I know a couple of them too, but it seems to be less the intent as we move forward each year. Piggy bank seems to be the intent, and that changes it.
Does anyone else have anything that we haven't touched on as far as negatives, positives? Not trying to You're just paying a depository to.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on bar and I'll be really quick.
Yeah, of course, no, I'm not trying to limit anybody, I'm trying to hear from everybody, I just want.
But to compare Breckenridge, to go back 40 years, to go back to when the bomb started the ski range, I don't think you're comparing apples to apples. To compare a short-term market of 2026 to a short-term market of even 2000 when I lived across the street from you and you built your house, they're not apples to apples. I did look one up, but I didn't know if I would need it or not. But Airbnb is an $87.5 billion business. So to me, that's not a group of people who wanted a cool house in the mountains, who bought a house in the mountains, who maybe rented it out, right? We've created this massive platform, whether it be Airbnb, Booking.com, you go through all of them. It's a different landscape. So I don't think that comparison works now. And it's not to say that I'm against short-term rentals. I don't feel that way at all. But I think it's important to compare it with what we're looking at today, right? And I think short-term rentals are a super interesting business because you have these companies, Airbnb, Booking, whatever you want, that have no real stake in the business, right? Their foot soldiers are the owners of these properties, right? And if Johnny's a crappy owner, Airbnb doesn't come out to defend him. They put a mark on their site saying, yeah, this owns this. And the customers are the same way. So it's as a business, it's super unique and it's really interesting to me how the business itself works, right? They just own this platform and they let everybody else kind of fight amongst themselves outside of their platform. So I just, for me, Bar, I think we need to compare today and not necessarily when you built your house, when I first moved to Blue River, any of those things. I don't think those are fair comparisons.
What kind of community do you think would be better if we took away short-term rentals everywhere?
Well, I mean, we're talking
Do
about.
you think people would still come here? A lot of people come and buy second homes? And then do you think do you think restaurants would go out of business, property management companies, construction people? Because
Do I still think there would be a desire to live in Blue River, Colorado if there were not short-term rentals? Yes. I think everybody in this room lives in Blue River, Colorado, not necessarily because there was a short-term rental. I didn't move here because there was a short-term rental. I moved to Heather's Point because I worked in Breckenridge. And this is where I ended up living.
Yeah.
So to say I wouldn't have moved here, raised my kids here, done everything that I've done here, it was not because of the short-term rental or the ability to be a short-term rental. So I don't think the desire, I don't think the attractiveness of this community goes away because it doesn't have short-term rental.
I think we also need to remember that sadly in the world, the way it has started swaying, that 20% of our overall problem is just bad people coming here that don't respect anybody or anything. And that is part of our enforcement that
I don't know
we're
what
not
the number
doing.
is, John, but I agree. It's the people, the bad actors that make the people who are trying to be good neighbors and who may justify their second home with the short term. They make those people get bad, and they make, I think, people like majority of people in this room think that the whole short term rental market thing has changed. And Ben, I've been here a long time. 1983, built my house in 2000. I don't even remember where you lived in the neighborhood.
Just across the street, up one house.
But and,
Okay.
and to Ben's
Long
point,
term
too,
rental?
Long term, it was James Breck Auto Body.
Okay.
That's who I.
Oh, James.
Not his house down below, his house up.
All right.
Chris Garvey used to own the house.
So-
up top.
I mean, we live in probably one of the biggest ski resorts and now one of the biggest summer resorts in the country. For sure. What do you think's going to happen to these communities? Peak 7 was the same way. Silver Shovel. All the outlying areas were the same way. But we've all benefited from the second home market. We wouldn't have careers and we wouldn't have been able to live here if it wasn't for the second home market. Maybe you would be the exception.
Correct. And I think second home market and short-term rentals do not
They go,
equal
they're
each other.
synonymous.
And I disagree.
I don't think they are either, Barry. And as to
intent, I'm sure that you know the intent of all the people that you're developing contracts with or for. I meant overarchingly, all of the real estate transactions that happen in this town. I do think that most of the owners of short-term rentals they don't have malice in their heart. They don't come here to try and ruin the community. I don't believe that for a minute. I do believe that some of them are absolutely outstanding at vetting their guests, and some of them are abysmal at vetting their guests. And therein lies a crux, and I don't know how to overcome it. But would that all people were, like our neighbor Mark Gross, who seriously vets his people and don't have issues. He had a bear target his house, and he built 3 different containers for his trash cans. And the reason he built 3 is because it took him 3 times to get it right, to where the bears no longer get in there and they don't go to his house anymore. But he was proactive in dealing with an issue that his business had, and he fixed it. And we were all grateful. 3 houses down from him, Party Central, got on the college frat list or something, and trash has been all the way across, and same bear issue. An effort was made there, but trash has been all the way across the street and up at least 2 houses at that property, and on more than one occasion.
But we already got rules to get rid of that person, so I don't know why it's so much. The citizens aren't doing their jobs, reporting an actual complaint.
So policy comes before regulations. We have regulations, but policy, our goal, our future, what do we want it to look like?
Yeah, I think that's the important part of this discussion. Let's talk about, I guess, maybe going down the line wasn't the most efficient. I'm learning here.
One question I'll say for policy is
100%,
that
go.
we need to try and fight these apps too, because Airbnb is so big now. If I could, I would get rid of them. Their customer service is horrible, and they're extra horrible to the hosts. They always side with the guests, no matter what, and you can't even get them to hardly respond. And if you're at work that day, you don't respond for an hour, they close your case. And you fight with them for hours to get anything done. And then, it's that little bit of guest that's terrible. And now I learned the other day, I can't even have the guest's cell phone number when they're staying at my house. And if they have a car in the way or something, that's a platform problem that our policy should also address and find a way to attack. Even though they're so big, anything we can do to help ourselves there is going to help everyone in our community.
I wouldn't disagree with John, but I think trying to fight something like Airbnb or VRBO for policy isn't going to work.
Well, we can make our own rules, and if they don't abide by it, they lose their license. Real simple.
Well, if we want to talk about policy, and the future and goals, okay, how many people want Blue River to be 100% short-term rentals?
Nobody.
Okay, well, then where do we, all right, we don't want it to be 0%, obviously, you don't want it to be 0%, so where do we meet in the middle?
So
Do we
there's
talk
something
about a
interesting.
cap?
There's something interesting that I talked with Bob about today about a cap. I know not everyone here is pro cap, so I just want to get this out before anyone gets too fired up.
All right.
Because I think it's a creative solution to this. We are actually allowed during this time to hold it's not a special, not election, but
Special election.
a special election, is that what it would be called? And basically ask questions to the residents. We're talking about residents here, and I think that's another important thing when we start talking commercial versus all that. What a resident is to a second homeowner is to an investment property owner is. So we represent the residents of Blue River, right? That's who we're really representing. People who are registered to vote in this town, who elected you and me to be here talking about what the future of this town is.
Clarification on that, Nick, real quick, because aren't our constituents also the second homeowners?
They're not voting.
They can't vote, but they're constituents, right?
You could, let's talk about, if you're a big city, there's a ton of businesses, right? None of them can vote. Are they still your constituents? What they want? In a degree, because they serve your residents, your resident voters. In a smaller community like this, when you have one type of housing, which is R1 basically, for the most part, all residential, you owe your allegiance to, number one, to the voting community, because they're the ones who are going to pick you to sit here. No one else picks you to sit here, they do. But you still have to have an eye towards non-voters who make your community what it is. And if you could say short-term second homeowners do so, then yes, their interests are important. But the person that puts you in the seat is not the second homeowner.
So is there a different argument where the people who pay taxes deserve to have representation? So that's everybody. No, that's not, because they didn't vote to put me in here.
No, but he's saying the balance between the
So
two.
that's,
Yeah, I think you had a very good point.
What about an
So,
open house or a
so next, sorry, I just
again,
wanted to.
this is what I'm getting.
Who we
So
primarily-
can I finish this point? Just, I know this is a very controversial subject, so I want to finish it before we get everyone all going on it. We could hold a special election and ask questions, basically like maybe what percent cap we want, or we can come up with those if we want to have a discussion of a cap. Before to gather information for us. From what you were telling me, it's not
Called advisory question.
an advisory question. Sorry, I totally left my piece of paper at home. I wrote all my notes down.
It's still a special election.
So it's still a special election, but basically an advisory election. So we can gather the information from our residents on what they would like to see.
And that's better than a survey.
or an
It's
open
more
house?
formal.
It's more formal, and then I think it's also one of those things too that, in my mind, if you do special election, is you don't vote. For lack of a better term, you can kind of shut
I
up.
don't care.
So
It
a special election though, that's going out to our registered voters only
would have to be.
Yeah.
and not
That's how.
anyone else.
But then a survey we could send to everyone.
Well, I would just like the questions on any survey that we send forward to be. No offense to any previous survey participants or anything, but better crafted than they have been in the past.
I'm not bringing it up. I'm just saying, I just want to let everyone know that that is a solid option, I think, if they were going to go down the cap road discussion. I just wanted to get that out of the way because the next couple things on Bob's list definitely deal with that. I know it's a heated and very passionate topic for a lot of people in this room. So I wanted to let you guys know there is an option to ask the residents of Blue River their opinion. I think that's super important.
Time frame. How fast can we do that?
It'll take most of the rest of this year.
Well, so we have said to our voters that we're going to try and compress this time schedule and not have the moratorium last 6 months and compress it as much as we can and develop our policy and our regulations as quickly as we can. And we would like to stick with that. So how can we can't be slave to masters?
Well, my problem with the survey, John, just so you know, my only issue with that is that we're sending it out to our Blue River mailing list. Our Blue River mailing list is not necessarily residents. I would really like to hear the residents' point of view. And mostly because there is, to your point, $86 billion company, there are lobbying groups in Summit County based upon that. And that also concerns me when it comes to a survey. That's what I like about an election. An election is much more official. I feel like it's much more trustworthy in my opinion, but that's something for us to discuss. But I think if we are going to have the discussion of a cap, that's something super important to me.
How can we fast track it? How can we make it happen more quickly? Is there a way?
Yes, and we can sit down with a calendar and figure out the fastest we can do it. But there are certain election laws we have to follow.
Yeah, I want to throw it out there so everyone knew that was an option, because I'm going to start bringing up the elephant in the room of the cap. If everyone doesn't mind, I'm going to go first on my opinion on cap. I absolutely hate how Breckenridge did their cap system. People can say all day long, we cut it off without giving everyone a chance to go get their license, but we also were very realistic being like, we're going to reopen this. We're just not sure if we're going to reopen it. I don't want to see us cap below the number we have currently. I don't think we should take anyone who currently has the rights away. I would like to see a cap. I mean, worst case scenario, I'd like to see 50%. Best case, I'm probably more in the 30 percentile in my opinion, but that's my opinion. And that's kind of what I like about the special election, is that we can get a better realm of what our community thinks. But I would like to see us be higher than 50%. And I just think it's because at some point, I don't want to see us be 100%. I don't want to see us be, I can't even imagine at 90% what it dollars. Like there are roads in our town that are getting to 80, 90%. Cody Nanny, prime example. The only ones on Golden Crown.
Oh,
Yeah. I just watched with them the other day.
I mean, do we analyze it by neighborhood?
I think it's a conversation to have with that. It's like if we do a cap, I think neighborhood is important, probably an aspect in that. I mean, I'm open to either way. If it's just a whole number or if it's a neighborhood number, I'm open to either one. I'm just saying, I don't think we should. I have no interest in being like, I don't want you. The second your license goes away, or to take your license. I don't want to take anyone's license. But I am saying that I would like to see some sort of. We're the only ones, to my knowledge, and to my research, which is not probably the best. Everyone in either direction has caps.
Ton of Dylan too.
Huh?
Ton of Dylan.
Dylan got one.
That's what Dylan doesn't.
Dylan does not. I am shocked.
Not that Dylan is a good example.
As far as I'm aware, Keystone does not.
Keystone doesn't, but that's
a very different
similar
scenario.
community. Like I would expect them ever to do.
Yeah, that's a tough.
That's like Copper putting one in. I don't see Copper ever. How is Keystone?
And Copper.
They have ski resorts in their town. We're not a
They
ski
don't have a
resort.
town.
They're
Who
90%.
doesn't?
I mean, they don't have a main street like Redwood.
Multi-family.
So then you have to have a main street to have a
We
town?
don't either.
Copper's not a town.
I would say the biggest difference, Barry, is we are 100% residential. Both of those entities have commercial in their town. We have no commercial except for our short-term rental. So I would say that's the biggest difference, and that's what makes Blue River really unique, I think, in this discussion, is because we are a residential community first. We don't have a main street. We don't have a ton of tax base from businesses, right? So this community, to me, is super unique because of that fact. And I think all the discussions we have need to be aware of that. We are a residential first and foremost, whether it got here from rentals or didn't get here from rentals or second homeowners, like we are a residential community. We are not a commercial community in any way.
And never have been.
But we are associated, we're a symbiotic relationship with the resort communities. We can't just sit here and say we're just on an island by ourselves. We are affected
I
by.
think we can't say we're on a little island.
We're top of the food chain.
Well,
I like that attitude.
Valley.
Clearly, we're not, because Breckenridge still takes most of our taxes.
I'm just curious.
Another battle to fight.
And Nick, I know you're obviously in favor of caps. How come, does anybody know how an incorporated Summit County does it? They're not caps. Does anybody know what they do?
I had a data source.
I guess not.
It'll
Will you
take
want
a
me to
minute.
fill you in?
Yeah.
So everybody gets a short-term license. They're allowed 35 bookings a year. So everybody can book short-term rent. It discourages those people that want to make a profit center out of it, right? And you're not choosing winners and losers. Why don't we discuss that too before we just
No, I-
jump on the cap bandwagon?
100%.
I don't think Nick was going on a cat bandwagon at
Well,
all.
I think
he
we
just
are.
figured it out.
If you just read the next few questions, I was just trying to basically sum them up. I wanted to throw out some options. That's a great option, and I actually really like it, Barry. That again, with a special election, we could ask what our residents would prefer. That's what all I'm getting at is there's other options here besides us deciding this is the road we're going down. This is the hard line we're taking. And I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm just trying to lay out some other options that before I talked with Bob about this, I was not aware we were doing. And as I said, I was just sharing my opinion on where I would like to see things land. I'm not saying that's where we're going to land.
And I think based on how we started, which I thought was fairly wrong, that the special election thing would give the best representation.
It'd be nice to get some second homeowners on that too. What about the second homeowner that doesn't short-term rent? You care what they think?
Why would they care about the short-term rental licenses if they don't rent?
Well, maybe they're gonna give their house to their.
Legacy homes.
As I lived here for 11 years, I had a second home here for 11 years. I didn't want short-term rentals around because the one that was near me was a problem child and was noisy. People didn't respect my property. So I would be one of those voters that says, that I don't intend to rent, but I don't want the impacts. That in my opinion.
I'd say one small point of clarification is I have not looked at this, so I can't say this 100% that Summit County differentiates between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is local residents that does not have a cap. Type 2 are people outside of Summit County, and that does have a cap.
What? Yes.
There's a resort zone and a residential zone. Residential zone is allowed
Right,
30,
right.
no, it's the county.
Okay, I was just
35.
asking.
Go ahead. Or no, yes, we
I
can.
I serve the board as Upper Blue, I'm your rep to the Upper Blue Planning Commission. So I was on Upper Blue, and I don't have to share this information, but if you want it. I was there when they instituted their regulations for short-term rentals. And we do have a cap, and it varies from basin to basin. So, I mean, you can just look it up really quickly yourself, but just to be clear, you know, I'm not a member of the public, I am your rep to the Upper Blue Planning Commission. And we did institute in basins caps. And they looked at proximity to resort, right? At that time, Keystone was part of the county, was a resort zone. It is now its own municipality, as you're all aware. Copper's a resort zone. Around perimeter Breck, they view, that's Upper Blue.
Called a residential zone.
It is, but it's Upper Blue Basin. So each basin, I pulled it up. because-
Dan, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, just so you know.
Okay. But
Yeah.
And they open it up like each July or something, when they drop below the cap through attrition or anything, they open it up to like a lottery type system or whatever, a wait list, not a lottery. And then they.
well, I guess I'm just making it up then.
So
So,
I think they've changed the
right, so
regulations.
how do
in
you
other
feel about
places.
putting it into the conversation? Let people short-term rent, have our rules and regulations and our enforcement, but let them set a limit to 35 bookings.
I like the sound of that bar. I won't lie. You know what I mean? Like, so is that 35 bookings that are a week long?
No, but it's your choice.
So I think we get back into
It
the
discourages people from the one-nighters and the
All right, if
two-nighters.
you got 30, just to throw out if you got 35 weeks, like straight weeks booked, as someone who owns an SDR, I'd be, yeah, that to me doesn't even, I wouldn't even, because you do have shoulder seasons. You have to remember that
I have to try very hard to get that.
4
That's
months out of the
I'm not
year,
there, so I lower price.
it's not the most, not everyone loves to come to River, which I love, because I think it's one of the best ones there, but. So I also, my concern with that would be enforcement seems on something like that, like it may be fairly difficult to enforce something of that nature. I'm not saying impossible, but trying to figure out who, with our current system, definitely, because it's self-reported.
right. And Barry, I'm with you in a lot of ways, right? Like, I don't like the picking of winners and losers. To me is a problem, and I think the cap can do that, right? I do think that's an issue, right? I fall in line a little bit more with Ted. Like, okay, so we have none, or we have all, right? Like, I can make a good argument for both of those things. When we get into the muddy waters in between of, well, do we have this many, and how do you get to this number, and who gets these licenses, and who doesn't get these licenses? I run into personally more problems. I think that's much more difficult to try to figure out a system that works in that. I would love to sit and talk about it and see if we can come up with something that does fit in between those two things. Because I don't think zero, maybe the word think is it seems difficult that zero is an option. It just does. It just does. To me, it seems, but 100% seems like a terrible option. Right?
I think everybody agrees on that part.
So what are we gonna do in the middle? The 35 bookings, I like the way that sounds, but
So
I've
pick a
sitting next to
number.
Bob long enough that I play it out and I'm like, well, that's 35 weeks out of a 52-week year. What did we really accomplish with that? So
So Ben, I know you don't like picking losers, winners, and the cap system can do that. So pick a number, 15, 20, something like that, because it takes care of two things.
What if barring, and this is something I've thought about, and if you guys pick it apart, I don't care. You won't hurt my feelings in any way, shape, or form. What if we gave out a 3-year license? And we institute some sort of cap, right? Whatever number we decide, whether it's a neighborhood cap, whether it's a total cap for the town, we have this number, right? You get a 3-year license. You get to reapply for that license at 1.5 years, right? In that cap system. So if there's under that many licenses, then you'll get your license back. If there's over, then it goes into a lottery. But now you have 1.5 years remaining on your license to deal with the bookings, the other things that you had going on. Because I think that's one of the problems is you say, well, you don't get a license next year. It's like, well, I already did a year's worth of bookings ahead of time. So if we had the renewal period somewhere in the middle, right? And then what if we threw in there that you could only get 6 out of 10 years as a maximum rent?
Sounds pretty complicated.
But
You lost me actually about halfway.
Well, that's, we haven't discussed the software that's on next, but is that?
That's coming up. That's
Something-
coming. I think it's just part of that, but like,
enforcement options.
there is enforcement options on that, but I think that like, as I said, I think that this is like the elephant in the room for a while. And I think it's important that in this work session that we work through it, because I think it's one thing that people have talked about, people have gotten back. And that's why I was saying I don't like how I did it. And just like, that's like the point where like, you pick winners and losers. That's why I wanted to be like, wherever we set it, I don't want to set it below current. I don't want to take anyone's license away. Like next year, if you had a license this year, you could still have a license next year. Your plan, although it is, I can see the complications of RSC, and I don't see it being overly complicated. But I'm saying, I guess, that I don't want to see people lose the right to have it now. I'm saying that I want to set it high enough that there's some legal room. But I think that there needs to be at some point a break, right? Like there needs to be a stopping point of what we're willing to let our community be as far as an STR. So your point of being a residential zone, like at what point are we more a business community than a residential community? And that's my point. Is like I'm not saying we should take what people have currently and what they're used to away. And if other people want to with them all day long, but I'm also saying I think that there is a threshold there. I think there is a strong threshold of how many licenses can be issued before we lose the residential part of our community and become more of a business side of the community. That would be my opinion on that. Sounds like I know Bob wants to talk, John wants to talk.
I'm not trying to help you guide.
I was about to say I know Bart wants to talk.
The issue of caps and the issue of limiting the number of days of rental or number of bookings actually kind of overstepped a little bit. And the fact that you may be willing to set a higher cap if all the rentals are a certain number of bookings or less. Because those are more homeowner kind of operations, right? Or at least they walk and talk more like an owner, right? And so you may be willing to say 50% max is okay because all the 50 will be renting only out so many times a year. Okay? But you may say the cap has to be much smaller if the types of rentals are 24/7, 360 bucks and the owners never do. Okay? They do sit over about that. That's all.
So we
John,
can,
sorry, John had something to say there before there. So I'm trying to.
Do we have any actual factual data yet of sewer and water usage? Because there was talk of it last year that somebody was starting to do some studies that we were going to get some data, but I haven't seen or heard of any of it. Do we have any?
I
yet, or is it-
requested studies, but it was never kind of followed through because I've been concerned for our water since I started, and before that. But and I know it's not ideal that I'm not there, and I apologize for that. So I apologize I'm not there. But one thing I just want to make a few comments. I think for me, I am concerned about policy, but I also am concerned that I think it sounds like most people might be interested in discussing caps, and I like that we could ask our residents what they feel, because that's why I'm here, is to support them. And I think when I do and I do look at a lot of these individual listings and I'll see if it'll say it's a 4-bedroom and how many it sleeps. But later it says, but if you, but it's a 5-bedroom and they're saying there's a loft and a living room, and that goes against our wells. I mean, every well has a bedroom capacity, right? So mine is a 4-bedroom. I have 4-bedroom well, right? Same with my septic. I know some people are on sewer, but I believe your sewer is also on bedrooms. There's a problem with putting too many people in these neighborhoods. There's several listings that have a 4-bedroom, but they have 19 beds in it. Why are there 19 beds if it's a 4-bedroom? It just invites over occupancy. And those are the things that when policy we talk that I want to try to cover. Those are the things that I worry about that are hard on our community. And everyone knows I believe in caps because I would like to keep the community. We're a residential community, not a commercial, and I believe STRs are a business. So just wanted to say, a lot of these, and I think a lot of this is going to be cleared up by the software. So I am excited to implement something like that because, if you say you have a 4-bedroom, but you have 19 beds, there's a problem, right? You're inviting over occupancy. And if we don't kind of close in on that, there's also those issues. So thank you.
I just want to mention what you said. So Jody, I agree that people shouldn't be over extending their the system on their house, and wells are not regulated by bedrooms, just so you know. They're regulated by the production. There's really, you drill it until you get to a certain level, and then you get a certain amount of water. They don't stop when you say, okay, you got 4 bedrooms worth of water.
Correct. I apologize. I said that wrong. You're right. Yeah.
But the septic systems, putting aside the sewer for a minute, they do specifically regulate the number of bedrooms for that house. Specifically. They're designed for by bedroom, not bathrooms, just bedrooms. That's easy to regulate. Now the sewer, because Bob, and I appreciate the list you put together, Bob. How do you regulate because now that we can hook up to the sewer, someone could put in 19 beds or into a, let's just say a 3-bedroom septic system. That's not okay.
We already have a rule against that. We're just not forcing the number of people per bedroom.
I know, you're right, John. I'm just saying that going by as far as trying to quantify, what's the maximum number of bedroom people you can have in your home, it can be dictated by a septic system. At the current, most people are, well, not in I get a lot of people are still on septic, but the well is very hard to quantify. How the wells are impacted by people. It's very hard. But I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
But would you agree though that if you have 19 beds in a 4-bedroom, you're inviting over occupancy, even if because of our rules, it's 2 bedrooms plus 2. In my opinion, it's just inviting over occupancy into our neighborhood and putting a strain on our resources. And that includes police, the roads, not just water and septic. It is it's tough on our entire residents.
Not disagreeing with you.
Let's get rid of those people.
So anyways, I think we've got this software that is basically what we're going to vote on, right? I think that's important to just distinguish that. That's one of the reasons I was trying to stay on track with some of the other bigger elephants in the room. I think that what you're saying is very important, Jody, and I appreciate you agree with it. I think it's one of those things that the software is basically being paid for to vet out, right? Like we tried doing without it. We gave it a college try without doing something, without assisting the town employees with it. But we got to do something. I think that's why we're going to discuss that next.
Can I just comment? So going back to the vote thing, having a community vote, I think it'd be great. If the community says, Bari, we don't want any rentals or we want caps for this, I'm fine. I'll go with what the community wants to do. Whether we have rentals or don't have rentals isn't going to impact me at all. It really, whether I'm selling real estate or not selling real estate or live in the neighborhood, I think we live in one of the highest percentage neighborhoods. Correct, Jody?
You guys are.
Lakeshore Loop, I think, is higher.
Well, but we're pretty high, right?
Oh yeah, we're up there.
I still, so I'm all for regulating this stuff. And I think the bigger issue, honestly, in Bob's list isn't policy, it's not regulation, it's enforcement. How do you can have all these rules and everything, but if you've got the bad players out there, or you go to a cap, well, the cap, I guess, is kind of easy because you can just say you don't get a license. Because we've already established that, let's just say 50% of your subdivision already is licensed. But how do you, I think our bigger problem is enforcement. And I'm not really understanding how we're gonna do that. With regard to the program that we're talking about, I do have a secondary question to that.
Let's discuss the program, and we have like a whole section of meeting on the program.
But there is another element that Breckenridge has, and that is a registered, a hotline for people to call. Does the program have a hotline?
It does.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I just,
Don't worry.
So could I speak one more thing on the cap?
I think that's what I was about to say that. Again, like, I think we need to talk enforcement, but I would really like to get the cap thing where everyone has a chance to talk about that. So yes.
So you were saying you don't take anyone's away right now, and you set it at that, well, we can set a cap at a lower amount, but still allow those licenses
Oh, 100%
until they
we can.
drop off
100%
to
with you.
whatever level it's set at. So it doesn't mean we have to set it at
Oh, yeah.
75% if that's what the neighborhood is.
Oh, well,
We could still set it at.
100%. I know that we can set it lower than where we were. As
Can I
said,
just
don't-
see also, oh, sorry.
I was just saying it wasn't where my head was at. Where is it? Like, I would love to have a discussion about that. I just wanted to feel kind of, I guess, everyone's thoughts, feelings, concerns on what their thoughts on, like Barry has been very vocal that he's not very pro cap, and that's fine. And that's great. I think it's very important to have everyone's opinion.
Let's find
clarify,
out. how
I'm not
long-
against caps. What I'm having an issue with is we've got rules that haven't even been given a chance. We don't enforce our rules. We haven't even given that a chance. And now you want to jump to caps.
We're having a discussion about caps. We're not jumping to, we're not voting on anything.
Well,
We're not having a right policy on anything.
so
The whole idea of this workshop is to have an
So-
open conversation about different
If you
issues.
don't mind,
involving-
don't put me in the box that I'm against caps. I'm not necessarily against caps. I
I
want to
still-
discuss are there other options.
Okay. But I'm just trying to get this option. Sorry, and I didn't mean to put you in a corner of the you're against them. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to get this one topic through everybody so everyone has their opportunity to talk about it. And that's important that we hear from everyone on the board so we know where everyone sits on every topic that we're going to discuss this evening. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Do you have anything to say about caps then?
I've already spoken on caps.
Okay.
How quickly can we go forward with the vote is what we wanna know, I guess.
Can I say one thing
Of course you can.
about and not just the vote? Like, I think the vote is so valuable. The information that comes from it's super valuable. But as a government, we are tasked with not just taking what's going on in the community today, right? It's our job. We were elected to have some sort of foresight into the future and say, this is what the community needs to look like this far down the road. So reacting to things that are happening now, it's the one great thing about government, and as much as I dislike most things about government, is it moves very slow, very lethargic when it gets done. And it's for that reason, right? We're trying to focus further down the road. I love feedback. I like when the audience is full and we get a lot of comments. I read all the emails that come. I like all of that stuff to see what people are at. But we need to remember, like, this is our job, right? To try to read the mission statement of this community and try to figure out where it's going to be, right? Just because in June, the last day of June of 2026, 97% of the people want this sort of thing to happen in our community. It's our job to look further down the road and say, where did our community start? Where is it going? And where are we, stewards, where are we trying to get it to end up? So I like the idea of the vote. I'd love to hear the information. I think it's also important for us to know we have responsibilities that are bigger than today, right? They're much further down the road that we may never see the benefits or positive or negative benefits from those decisions. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. That was. Do you have anything else to speak on caps? We can start talking about enforcement. I think that's probably the next place we need to go.
If I could just say, I'm sorry, one more thing. If I could just say that I also believe caps do help compliance, because if somebody's worried about losing their license, they're more apt to stay in compliance with our current policy where we go forward.
So, on that, I'm going to ask everyone on the board, basically, do we want to do a special election on this? Or do we want to make this decision as a board? Because it sounds like there's some conversations happening. Where do we want to go with this? We've done this conversation 3 or 4 times as a board. So at some point, we need to come to some sort of, like, I hate to use the word consensus, because I know not everyone's going to be on the same page, but at least some sort of middle ground on this topic. Because I guess my biggest thing is, like, anything that we're discussing this evening, I would like to be like, this is like, either we're going forward with it and figuring it out, or we're not going to talk about it for a while. We're going to talk about other important things in the town. I think if we keep recycling the conversations over and over again, that becomes, kind of counterproductive.
And this advisory, is this like a blank answer they can give? Like the voters can say, I want 5, 10, 20, 30?
That's a difficult question to write.
That's what I'm
extremely difficult.
wondering.
The advisory question, the reason why they call them advisory, I've done several of these and they've been very profitable, is that they're not binding upon you. So going to your point, you get that information. It doesn't mean you have to do what they say. Okay. In fact, one of the communities I represented back in the 90s, several advisory questions with regard to whether a road should be built. No. And they did it. Okay. Because they looked forward and said, we need this east-west connection. We know the voters don't want it, but we're going to put it in because we think it's the long-term thing to do. And it proved the right decision. It was a very close vote. So advisory questions are not binding. You ask the question in yes or no fashion, so you have to fashion the question very carefully. Do you support, I'm not making this up, I'm not saying we're doing this. Do you support caps where each neighborhood would have no more than 40% STRs within that neighborhood? Yes or no? Okay. You could ask it a variety of different ways. These advisory questions, it's not the cost of asking a number of questions, not large, right? So you'd say 50%, 60%. If in a small town, you have a little bit more flexibility to ask questions more open-ended. Like, please answer 50, 60, 40, 30. Give a number, pick one of those. So the question instead of yes, no is 50, 60, 40, 30. So you can get to that. It gets really complicated when you're a big community with that 20,000 voters to go through that number system.
I'm all the way in support of doing this to give the citizens an opinion and us to gain data and make a decision. And in lieu of that, I think we should move forward with some form of this program, potentially a co-compliance person. Because if we had both of these, then hopefully they would be together, like Stucky's saying, in knowing us a year. And then we would get rid of the problem Airbnbs. We would have our limit. Hopefully the people that came visit would be in accordance with our mountain community and treat us with respect, which would hopefully lead to people not being as upset.
So, like I said, I'm not necessarily not in favor of caps. As Nick mentioned, if we start this conversation, we would probably want to establish a starting point of what's our highest number now. 50% in some given subdivision.
I have that.
The tough thing is the math question.
But
we break it in neighborhoods.
So if you go by neighborhood,
we're not. If we go by neighborhoods, it's already specifically there in 2 or 3 spots. We're learning.
One of our biggest challenges is, according to the database, GIS database of county, there's over 30 unique subdivisions And some of them, there's vast differences in the number of homes compared to subdivision to subdivision. So we have to be very particular about how we phrase.
Am I the Highway 9 division? So I get,
Are you in
I get to live with CDOT?
Are you a meets and bounds or a subdivision?
I'm in subdivision.
So why couldn't you do it by percentages in a subdivision?
Because the subdivision is different when you're on the highway.
But it's a subdivision. I mean, you're on the highway. Yeah, you're on the highway subdivision. Or what is it?
Sunny Slope.
Sunny Slope. So I'm in the Crown, 50%. We're close to 50% now. I mean, I think if we go the cap route, don't you have to have some kind of a formula that's a stat that you can apply? And then it seems to me the easiest thing is go by subdivision, establish a percentage.
Some communities go to zones because they may have 30 subdivisions in the community. So they sit down with the map and they zone it out. They said this zone can have only so many.
Yeah, I think that I
It's
thought about
easier
that.
to
I think it's hard to do in Blue River because we're mostly residential. Breckenridge was a little easier. They did by land use guidelines is how they actually established their zones. And so I would prefer that we consider at the moment, based on what I know, if we're gonna go down that road of caps, that it be by percentages of within each different subdivision. Seems like the easiest way to do it.
Is this an advisory question as well? Do you want it
Yeah, probably.
capped by subdivision?
Well, yeah, I guess my question with the advisory questions. It sounds like this is gonna be it.
That's my biggest issue.
Right.
I was waiting to go.
Oh, sorry, you can go.
If we're 6 months out to get this information, then I think we're doing a disservice to the community. I don't think it's worth
I
saying
agree with you, Ben.
that we're gonna go this special election, this advisory question, these things, and we're gonna have this stuff worked out sometime in January. Right? To me, I think that is neglecting our duties.
We could have done
I
this
fully
without a moratorium. We should have been doing this without a moratorium. So can't we do this election? Can't we make, as a group, we're discussing how to go down the road in the future. Do we have to make this decision before the moratorium's over? Can we just go ahead and say, here's the direction we're leaning. We do want to have an election and not hold up the community waiting for an election, but still go down the road of hearing what people have to say.
He made this point last meeting, and I think it is actually, because I watched the majority of the last meeting.
Here, Bob.
You, actually.
Said something smart.
I guess I don't disagree with you, the moratorium thing, we could have done without it, but we are where we are, right? Like, we're here. My concern is, something he brought up, is that we are going to see a rush to license, which is exactly what Breck saw. Because that's one of the reasons I think Breck did theirs the wrong way, is they allow people to just rush to license the second the moratorium gets pulled. If we are going to make this decision on caps, I believe we owe it to our community to do it before it is listed. I'm not saying we have to. I'm saying I believe that is my opinion on the matter.
I agree.
Well, the next best thing then is just to establish something and then have a public hearing on it.
And one of the reasons why the advisory question is better is because it's a limited circle around people who are giving you that feedback. If you do a public hearing, it may be, I'm just making this number up, 70% industry people who don't live in your community will come in here and tell you what to do. So that's the problem with public.
I'm not afraid to ask them.
I think it's one of the things I like about our public hearings is everyone kind of comes up and tells us, when you live here, you tell us your address. I actually love that habit, and everyone does it, even though you probably already know where you guys live. I'm just, as I said, I think if we do lift it, we run that risk. It's exactly what happened to Breckenridge. And it kind of a different way, but the same spirit is they announced they were going to put caps up, and everyone rushed to licenses. I mean, I don't have like an exact number, but I've heard some absurd numbers of licenses that were applied for in like weeks coming. I think that if we're going to have we're ever going to do a cap as a board, this board, we owe it to the community to do it before the rush to license happens, and we all of a sudden are at like 75 to 80% in neighborhoods.
And I personally like the pressure, right? I like that it makes us get something done. This is such a hard issue, and there's so many nuances to it. Everybody's, just like Bob has said, right? We've never made a policy because it's hard as hell. right? Where some people are gonna be mad, right?
Well, this is a lose-lose for all.
100%. So I like the pressure that like, all right, we're gonna get this done. We're gonna work through this. We're gonna task ourselves with the problems of dealing with this, and we're gonna come up with the best solution we can as a board. And then we're gonna
I've been waiting 4 years for this.
and we've made Ted made for all kinds of stuff. We finally started to get to his agenda a little.
If we were gonna go further with this conversation, what information would you guys need from either Bob or the town to help make an educated, I'm gonna use the word decision again, on that, just so we can make an educated policy on this? I think it's important that we share at least now, and I think that it's very important too, if anyone thinks of anything in the interim, to be very vocal with these guys, but like, I think that I wouldn't be comfortable even having the conversation right now of the exact number, because I want to see some more data on it. I would like to, kind of see it. The bar map, sorry. It's a good thing. The bar map that you did with the zoning map, but like basically mapped out with like percentages on a map so that I could see it visually. I think that's something that's attainable probably. I don't think it's like super difficult to ask, I hope. You can tell me if it's super hard.
The only challenge exists between the licenses that we have and the unlicensed operations. If we don't want to discuss the unlicensed operations,
I think that the whole idea of this software is to get rid of these unlicensed operations.
We're gonna do either way, so.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'd assume that everyone's on board with the software we're doing. I don't think anyone's, unless I'm missing something.
What version?
Well, we can tell that shit, but then we're not gonna be like, we're not having something, right? Like, we're gonna start enforcing
I'm
online
glad to
rules.
hear that.
It's a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, I think I'm just making sure that we're doing something to address the unlicensed ones. I don't know if we can quantify unlicensed ones in a.
Three vastly different estimates from three different sources of software that I've talked to. So
Oh wow.
it's very hard to say. It was 250 up to 400 short-term rental operations in town. So it's very hard to say which number is correct at this given moment without manually scrubbing. And some may be capturing long-term rental scenarios that are listed on sites that they're scrubbing, things like that. There might be these extenuating circumstances that might limit the actual number that really exists. That was just one sweep. So you have to clean up that data. So there are real reasons why that variance exists. It just concerns me that it's that one.
That's a big gap. No, you're 100%. I appreciate that. That's what I'm saying. I want to make sure we're making an informed decision.
Yeah.
As a possible also that it's easy to confuse a 30-day plus rental short term from a less than 30-day short term rental.
Because people do advertise on Airbnb for 30 days.
Exactly.
More and more people are going that way.
A lot of friends that do like ski club rentals where they rent them for the 6 months.
Yeah. There's people
That's very
that
popular.
will rent their house out to a company for 2 to 3 years exclusive. And that company rents to their club membership. There's all kinds of scenarios out there.
This will certainly be something by matter of attrition, and once we get things online and really figure out what's existing. Yeah.
I think the thing we all can agree on at least is that we need this software and that does have hotlines so people can call in. How do you guys feel about having a qualified registered agent local? Rather than if someone's short-term renting.
Part of the license process.
Is it?
Yeah, it is that what you're asking as part of the.
No, I'm just saying that some people that short-term, if they have a property management company locally, they're gonna have that agent there to address problems that come up. If they are not using property management company, which a lot of people do, and they just have a cleaner and someone to do maintenance, and they live in, let's just say, I don't know, and there's a problem. And the neighbor and somebody calls the hotline needs to call the registered agent. And someone needs to take care of, address the problem.
We have that.
It's in the rules.
Yeah. You're supposed to have one. I forget how exactly fast you're supposed to do it. I don't pay attention to it.
So that person has to be.
I live 100 feet away.
on I believe it's an hour.
Okay. Yeah, it's somewhere very, like, you have to have someone within, like,
Yes.
it's within a few hours. I think it is an hour, but I kind of always like, mine's. Shut up. So I think that is a good point. I think that's important. And I think I think that this software will help with all of the unregistered ones. But again, I think that, does anyone else have anything they want from Bob? Or maybe even from Chief? As far as information goes, I don't know. I just want to leave you out over there.
Yeah, I appreciate
it.
It's a question.
Chief, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
As far as enforcement goes, because I think that's gonna be our bigger challenge.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say there's certain circumstances where the police department should respond, like a noise or traffic?
Right.
And maybe cut it off there, and everything else that happens goes to maybe an enforcement officer or something?
Yeah, there's the two sides of code where we deal with the criminal, the public safety, and the health and welfare. And then there's the administrative side, more on the town side, with the licensing and the permits and those types of things, those regulations. So we, boots on the ground, can go resolve a parking complaint, something that's going to affect public safety possibly. Too many cars blocking the road now, we can't get emergency vehicles through. We go out there, noise complaints, especially at night when there's parties happening, we go out there. But are they advertising too many bedrooms or occupancy and stuff like that? That's definitely now a civil matter on the town side.
Yeah, I'm looking more to leave you of have specifics like that, like noise and traffic. Maybe there's a fire out in the yard going on.
No,
And you guys see
correct.
it, but the rest of it we do administratively.
Yeah, and at some point though, the two blend, they do marry together, and that's what my police department has done now is we've created a code enforcement or a code tracker. So when we get complaints that we're responding to, we're tracking what we're doing. That information is available to the town side. So if that address turns out to be a short-term rental, it could count towards one of these violations towards their license or something like that. So the two do kind of cross, but they are also distinctly separate as well. So but we are responding to all the things the police department should respond to appropriately, and we're tracking it. We're creating this database of information. Now we need to get the town, get this new position in here to start managing that information as well.
So I know in the past, the database that I think you're referring to has been hard to access for the normal person. Is there a database that you could create that would be easily downloaded into our database so we can actually see people who are continuing to have offenses?
Yeah, so right now I'm using a shared file, and I'm not a super techie person, but we have a shared file that all the different departments can access information, and so the police department, as we respond to it, we're tracking the date, time, location, what we verified or didn't verify, and it's all there. That could be downloaded into a spreadsheet and attached to these meetings or I don't know if there's any public information. It's all public information. I think it's available for inspection.
It would just be really useful as far as these bad actors and seeing if they're violating, if they need to have something done to disciplinary, because you do a lot of that enforcement and of that piece of it, and that those calls you respond to, we don't know necessarily unless you let us know that you had to respond to something.
Well, I think that's what's so critical about this next position or person that we hire. They're going to be the ones that track that and enforce that. They use this information to proceed with enforcement.
They're the ones going to be, basically issuing.
But it is a heavy administrative, investigative type of role that they're going to take a lot of time to go through manually checking these websites, manually check. I mean, the police department's going to provide one vein of information to them, but there will be tons of other information they need to manage as well.
I think the software is going to help us with that.
Oh, no, absolutely. But this position is critical because it's very time intensive as far as I can tell. Especially we're kind of behind.
Yeah. The hotline will probably really help us, even though the police might be called to do a noise violation. It might go through the hotline first, so we have a record of it.
That is the intent, yes. The challenge being that is this hotline being called for a specific short-term rental, or is it used for broader concepts of what a hotline? But people may assume and see that and say, hey, anything code enforcement related should be sent to a hotline. that is done for STRs.
See, how do people know if the noise next door
That's
is
the
a
challenge.
short-term rental
Exactly.
or a second house owner or?
Does the software have the ability to differentiate?
There should be a live agent responsive to calls.
So it would automatically be in a database.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
As soon as that address is put in.
Correct.
Option.
Yeah.
So
As
if my
far as I
neighbor
understand, that's the
is just a family that owns their house and they're a little loud on the deck one night, and I call the hotline, and they're not a short-term rental, the program should be able to say, well, that's separate. It's not a short-term rental.
And
Yeah.
provide the phone number of the.
That should be, yes.
Okay.
Yes. They should be able to talk to the responding party. If it is a short-term rental, it should be escalate. It should not escalate. It should be referred to the responding party which would be like the agent for a short-term rental. But if it's not a short-term rental, it would be sent internally, and then we deal with it as a case-by-case basis, as they would not have data for individual homeowners that are
Yeah,
short-term
yeah,
renters.
It's kind of, some of these things are time sensitive though,
Sure.
right? And that's, you want the police department to respond and verify a complaint. So one of our dispositions to a complaint is unfounded. And that might be a noise complaint. When we get there, the party is gone because it is off the deck. They went. It doesn't mean that violation didn't happen. We just can't prove it. So we need to be able to accept complaints and concerns through multiple ways. But I would push more towards funneling it through the police department, through the non-emergent dispatch line. Right. And then we can kick it to a code enforcement for somebody else, right? But we can go and verify sooner than later. Because that is a complaint I get a lot. People say this has been happening on and on for months and months and months. And I'm like, this is the first time I've heard about it. And so none of this other history counts really, as far as like enforcement.
Yeah, until you see something, you can't do it.
Right. I have to be able to verify, or either way it happened or didn't happen. So I like the idea of we can take complaints from multiple ways, but I think the non-emergent dispatch line, for a lot of it, unless it's really known that we're just talking about a construction site and there's some kind of, building permit violation that doesn't need to immediately be looked at.
So we could educate the community on who to call for certain concerns. Like, if you got a
Well,
notice.
so here's another point though, too. We are 24/7. You're going to get a live person that actually is going to have the answer for you. It's not phone service that's like, hey, I'll forward your message to the right department. They call me or call our officer that's on duty and they say, hey, this is happening. I can tell that person right now, hey, call back tomorrow when John's in the office and he can get you that application or explain that issue. Or I understand that I need to respond out there now and check it out. Use us that way. Use the police department that way. So, if a concerned person has, and they don't have to be educated and understand who the right authority is to address it, just you can funnel a lot of this through us. And then I'm sure the town probably gets their own share of it anyway during business hours. But funnel these concerns and complaints through the non-emergent dispatch line. We can filter it on the spot right there. Say, hey, I'm coming out. I'll check it out. Or we'll have the town manager or clerk or somebody else call you about it later or respond.
For sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
Because like I said, if it's something that a technical violation happened, but by the time we get there, there's no evidence of it, then it essentially didn't happen as far as the courts are concerned.
Well, the nice thing about the hotline, if it's a short-term rental, is that, and there's noise, people can call it anonymously. They don't need to worry about repercussions from their neighbor. And there's somebody that's supposed to be able to respond to that within an hour, just like you would possibly be there faster. But maybe that registered agent could nip the problem in the bud.
I think there's issues with people just doing it for fun at that point, or like just to mess with their STR. They don't.
There's certainly a time and place for both these. I think there are certain individuals that have a challenge with the concept of calling police regardless of whether or not that is the proper procedure. I don't know if the hotline will necessarily solve that issue. It may be a helpful factor. However, it may also be a negative factor in the response time. So it's a pros and cons scenario to which option is chosen. Yeah.
I as a police department, I'm objective, right? I don't care if it's short term or not. If you say there's a complaint happening at an address, I go and investigate that complaint. It becomes the town side to decipher, was that a short term or not? Because my response to the complaint shouldn't be any different. If it's a short term rental or
Yeah, if you're writing me a noise complaint.
if it's a noise complaint, that's what I'm investigating is the complaint itself.
Yeah,
Not if you have the right licenses and all the different stuff. I'm just verifying did this happen or not, and that's what I'm reporting. Right, and then hopefully we get this new position that says, oh, this address is a short-term rental, and then takes that administrative action, whatever that might be that you guys kind of.
So they can go into your database probably.
Yeah, my database is open and inspectable.
Yes.
I mean, if you guys want, I could include code violations into my chiefly report, end of the month report or something. I mean, or you guys can request it. However you guys want to see it.
It's just the enforcement piece. You know, if you got someone that's every month has a noise violation, it goes directly to the police department. We just have to be able to put it into our system so we know how to deal with it on the licensing side.
And I think that's what we're working on is building that process, the manager for that system and that process.
And that's the hotline is a item that, as far as I understand, can be negotiated in or out of contract. So it doesn't necessarily have to be used, but it can also be whichever option is at the discretion of the.
Yeah, we want.
Yeah.
Well, I see, as he's saying, that doesn't allow us to track and maybe show that they had a violation if it didn't go through the police department. Is that kind of what you're saying? If it goes to that hotline, is it not showing that? Because it's not verified.
Well, I'm saying some of the codes that we respond to could potentially lead to a violation to someone's short-term license or something, right? That structure. So it's coming from the criminal side, from the police department, and it is transferable into the civil side of that. So there's the two worlds, and some of it does come together. Not all of it, but some of it.
So yeah, I understand. So like, for example, if there's too many cars in someone's driveway, we're not talking about road. And they call the hotline, the code enforcement officer is probably gonna go out and inspect it, not you, right? Is that kind of what I got out of that?
Either in that situation, I mean.
Yeah, but it's not like a criminal offense to have so many cars in your driveway. It's a violation.
No, that's a code, right? That's not a state law or something, right? It's a Blue
Once
River.
again, if you don't, that may be something that if you don't respond in a timely fashion, it no longer exists. The problem no longer exists. The law enforcement officer is, for better or worse, a daytime position compared to an around-the-clock staffing for the police.
So I mean, I guess the hotline to me, I'm not.
I would
sold either way. I would think more of like, email us this if you have like photos of the violation, i.e., cars. I'm trying to think of other ones. A fire in someone's backyard, trash all over the road in someone's yard. Those kinds of things, to me, would make more sense to have a vessel to send those in and not necessarily, have to call the cops. I'd be more likely to send an email than to call the cops on something.
There is also a need to overhaul our code enforcement email submittal system,
100%.
which is not functional or particularly functional at the given moment.
Okay.
So that will need to be explored in either fashion.
Okay.
If it's done through short-term rental platform, it may be a bit more streamlined than the system that we currently use, or how we can actually configure it to make it more successful. But there are options out there.
Why do we require people to make an account or provide all their name if they're calling in, 6 cars next door? Why can't they just call anonymously, like Barry stated, and just say, there's an issue at this house, please go.
And they can. In the criminal justice system, though, you do have a right to face your accuser at some point in that process. But say like a drunk driver report on the highway or something, right? Somebody might report that this red truck is weeding a drunk driver. That's great. That gives the police the authority to go check out this red truck. And then as professional witnesses, we start developing our own observations of that. And then that's what we base our case on, is what the law enforcement officer saw at that point. The other option is this person can sign an affidavit testifying to their observations. But I think what has more credibility in enforcement is that the officer documents and says, I saw this, this is what happened, here's my pictures, here's my proof of this situation. So you're more than welcome to anonymously report. It gives us a tip to go investigate. But once we get there, if there's not proof of it, then there's not proof of it. And if you're not willing to testify and say what you saw, then there's really no proof of it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But so yeah, I take over that tip at some point. That complaint, it becomes the officer's observations once we're there to verify.
All right, so let's, we're about to talk about the software for a little bit. So let's wrap up the STR conversation. I think we were.
Is there anything else we needed from staff?
Is there anything else we need from staff or Bob?
Yes.
For us to kind of make some educated decisions? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
One last thing, then in lieu of a special election, because of the amount of time that it will take, why don't we send a survey with the same questions crafted in the same way and require the respondees to identify themselves as a resident, a second homeowner, or what was the third one we talked about earlier, Bob? There was three. I left my papers at home too.
A registered elector?
No, we mentioned.
So I guess here's my question. Can we send a survey out to two groups of people? I think would be the easiest. Number one, the Blue River mailing list that we currently have for our newsletter. And then can we email our registered voters? Is that, I'm asking.
I don't know if we have relevant contact information to reach that full group. In our system, the Blue River residents email access list is about 1,050 emails, and then news is about 1,300.
It's a CS.
So I don't know. There might be a way. There might be a workaround. I can take a look at it. But I don't know if we have a way to weed it out.
Do our voter records, if you went and got the voter rolls, does that have email addresses or a contact method in there? Some of them may, some may not.
I don't believe an email would be a required certification. I don't
have a registered.
It just seems to me that everyone is interested in what the community feels and is interested in community feedback. Special election is going to take too long. Can we do a survey that delineates who the respondent is in terms of whether they're a full-time resident or whether they're a second homeowner, or perhaps the third category was whether they're a short-term rental license holder. I'm not positive if that's the one. I had them written down, Bob, but I left my.
I think the only platforms we have are Facebook and the newsletter, right? To reach.
Yes, we have. We can craft a survey to submit through that same email process, but we don't have a third avenue.
Yeah, we use this
to have a certification of like we clearly know this isn't a resident.
Because we did that when we started. There was some surveys that we had gotten.
Well, right,
and that was super murky of who it was from and how we were.
There may be a
like
company
past
that helps
surveys.
geolocate, but that would be very. That also, once again, it's very easy to obscure emails, things of that nature. So it's difficult. Maybe it's possible.
No, I think that as I said,
I can't qualitatively say yes.
I'm concerned about the questions that go out in the survey, as I would be if it was a special election, because in the past they have been skewed, slanted, and have been soliciting a certain response, in my opinion, in the way that they were crafted. And I would like to avoid that with anything that we send out in terms of a survey, so that they're more of a yes or no, and there's no bias there built into the question already. You know what I mean?
And I agree, and I don't want to make the administrative action to speak as a voice of the board by crafting questions that are not explicitly said. The board says we give our stamp on this phrasing, because it doesn't. It's very tricky to say, hey, these are the questions that I'm pulling together and throwing it out there, and I may have implicit bias, or may not represent the interests of the board, as I'm one person in that set. I wasn't elected, so.
So we can move on to the new.
No, I think it's
stuff.
important that we wrap
But-
this up because as I said, as I said, I just want to make sure that if we're going to continue down this road, that we're going to finish this conversation sooner or later, mostly so we can get rid of this moratorium and we can give people a realistic expectation of what the board is going to do moving forward. I think that's very important, is that people not only who live here, but are potentially looking to buy here, have a straightforward answer as soon as the board is able to do so. So how we get to that point the quickest, I think, is important here. I really truly do.
It's
So-
challenging. I think most of it is stuff we can agree to get sorted out. The hard part is getting the public feedback piece.
I fully agree with the public
No, no.
feedback is the hard part. I think if we go down the public survey line, I think we are probably not kicking the can, but moving this decision at least 2 to 3 months down the road with the moratorium.
So
Now, if
what,
everyone is comfortable with that, that's okay with me. But if people would like to expedite this process for not only current residents, but also potential residents, for people who are trying to figure out if they're going to buy in Blue River or have their house for sale in Blue River, then I think that we need to make that decision.
Or just want to live there.
so Nick, just so I understand where you're going with this, so I agree with you. I want to get the moratorium gone as soon as possible, make these decisions like everybody wants. But
Yeah, I'm saying I think it's important to discuss with it how long it's going to take.
It's gonna take too long. Are you suggesting that we go ahead and establish specific, like with caps, for example, establish a number? Put it out
Policy,
there.
let's just call it policy.
I think we should.
Establish a policy.
I think we owe it to everyone for the rush to license to establish the policy before we lift this moratorium. As I said, we are where we are with it. We're here, we have it, so we need to make the decisions. I mean, I think I echo what Ben was saying, like it forces our hand to make this decision. The longer,
I would have just as soon do it like you're saying. Let's just establish a policy. Let's just go out on the limb and establish a policy. And I'm assuming it's a conversation that can take, if people aren't happy with our policy.
we can always change policy. I mean, that's always the thing we can do, and we can work on this. And if we look at an election, that we set a number that we feel is maybe more conservative. I mean, I guess we can look to discuss that as a board if we decide we want to go conservative or loose. I think it's always easier to give than it is to take, in my humble opinion. I think that's part of like the winner loser thing. I want to take something and then be like, well, actually, or give something to someone and then be like, actually, you don't get this eventually. So I think it's always important to set a realistic expectation when you decide to reopen up this conversation or like reopen the licensing formats and all that. So we know that you would like to just get this done and maybe address it again after we have some more information. How do you feel?
I would really love to see some type of feedback from the community. I don't know if this election process would take several months. A survey, at least maybe we could get some information inside of a month back and find some information. And the surveys can say, write your address and all that on there and kind of take it by word, but at least it opens it up to allow some conversation.
I mean, I've honestly been pretty proud of how much public comment we have gotten overall.
Quite a few, no.
I got
We have. And we had people talking to me.
Mayor and Chad are always interchangeable, I feel like. There's a lot.
Nick, I've just,
Yeah, sorry. You can go if you would.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure you were still there.
no, I apologize. I know I need to go, but I just want to ask if I'm getting what you're saying, you want to know if everyone on the board is saying, are we going to accept any new short-term rental applications so that the people who are waiting, is that what you're asking? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand.
Discuss a cap and any hard rules if we are going to policy change. I would like to see that if we are going to do a survey, I'd like to start that. But I'm just throwing it out there, it's going to take more than 1 or 2 meetings to do that. Maybe take just one, but then, it kicks the can down the road another month. or if we want to make the policy change so we can get people the information quicker, or, let them know where we see Blue River in 10 years with our policy.
Yeah, establish a realistic policy now, Jody, so we can move past this moratorium and people can make decisions.
Make educated
And do our
decisions.
best,
Fine.
do our best to come up with a realistic, fair type of policy. And then if people don't like it, we can always have discussions down the road and tweak things. We can always tweak things, right?
Yeah, 100%. So that's kind of what we're trying to say, Jody.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing it right. Frozen.
You have an opinion? Do you have an opinion on the matter?
I'm sorry. It keeps freezing on me. Yeah.
there's-
I mean, I have an opinion. I do have opinion. I think I've expressed it. So, if there's any questions about my opinion, but I think I've expressed how I feel.
Jonathan, let's go. What you got? You want to talk policy next week? Not next week. It feels like next week.
I have planning and zoning next week, please don't.
Next meeting, which would be our normally scheduled meeting, or would you like to craft survey questions our next meeting and wait until August, right? At least, best case. We could send an email out in the interim just asking for overall thoughts on STRs from people in general to our email list, holding in your pocket that most of them, not most of them, there's be a considerable amount that will not be necessarily residents, but that's, that's a grain of salt. I mean, I think the same thing when I was reading the emails, you had to like
Understand
take
the information.
a grain of salt with some of the
Yeah.
comments, because some of them were not
Understand.
pertaining. So I think that's
I would like to make the decision quicker, but I think we should ask.
perfect. Appreciate your opinion. Ben, you're up, bud. Your next
You already
line.
know where I'm at.
Do you want to?
I like the pressure that the board is under now. I would like to see us, as much as I value that interaction, I think the time frame, I think it's more important that we work as a board and come up with a policy. I don't, honestly, I don't think that the community involvement is important. I think it's very important. But if we come back and we get 50-50 from the community, what did it do for us as a board?
What are the what?
If we came back 50-50, right? If we had 50% like more short-term rentals, 50% saying no short-term rentals, then as a board, we're in the exact same place.
Versus just establishing a policy.
Right?
Yeah, I just didn't understand the last part of what you said.
To think that it's got to all lean one way and make our life really easy, I don't. I think it's going to be.
I agree with you. Asking is going to be very hard. Like, I would love if the election thing didn't take so long. I love all the Colorado state laws that make it that way. Because to me, like having like an official response to me is like very. Like that's to me, it's if that could happen in the next 2 months, like, there's no question in my mind I'd want that, right?
So,
But to get like kind of a diluted response from you, kind of know who it's coming from. To me, I think making the decision is more important. In my opinion, but that's my opinion. Are we allowed to kind of, I guess, like vote on that? Like, kind of like, are we going to move forward? Are we going to wait for the survey? Is that something we can do?
Well, I mean, let me posit one last thing then. I think that the last election was a key indicator of what the residents and the voting population, albeit that's not everyone, but I think that was a key indicator. And based on that, I'm ready to move forward and craft policy with this board, because I think that is an indication of how the community thinks and feels. I think that it was what put four of you on the dais, by and large, was this issue.
Okay.
So I don't think that we have to wait for a survey. I just wanted to know if we wanted to do it.
5 out of 7 of us. Is that kind of what I'm seeing?
Just go forward with policy.
Just next, we're gonna have, because we're gonna have, we might have a full house. Might be like a tarn.
Put it out there, draft. Or do we have to start working on it before?
I don't think we have anything official. I'd like to see something come from. I guess we need to. That's the next thing is we need to tell, like, instruct Chad,
which we did. What information we need.
What information we'd like to see. I think that the information that I would like to see, as far as like the percentage, is what we currently people have licenses. That should be easy. Our database.
I can do that.
Our database transformed. I know math. That's kind of sorry. I didn't mean to
I can,
saying
I can,
this.
I can geolocate addresses of
Yeah, I would like to
SDRs
see what we're actually,
to mapping.
who's actually legal currently. Then, and I think at that
That's the
point,
best way to approach it. I agree.
at that point, I think we can have the conversation of where we see the cap, if we see a cap moving forward based on that next meeting. Is that okay with everyone?
And how to establish it,
And how to establish it. I think it's important to see, as I said,
because.
if we are, if we're
The purpose of
not.
the map might be better to go with zones. If you have two subdivisions right next to each other.
100%. I think that sounds like you could probably put it together, just thinking in my head.
Rather than percentages, it may be zones.
I just want to know the information we would like to start crafting this policy, to get the policy on books as fast as we can.
So we need, if the map seemed to be helpful, Chad, is that something realistic? You could take that map and you could put a dot where all the short-term rentals are?
I believe that's an attainable goal. We
Not
also,
too much work.
yeah, we have the latest version of a map that would reflect that is 2024, so it is outdated. It's a starting point.
Well, I mean, I think
But I
starting
can
point is
make
good. I'm
I can make an up-to-date version of
You
that.
actually have a.
There's a 2024 version that does show that.
Hey, we spent $10,000 on a freaking map.
Yes.
We- so-
I don't know the exact cost. I can't remember.
That's everything
Right.
except cheap.
We're not gonna hold your feet to the fire if there's one or two left out. I want a vague idea.
Yeah.
To look at
I
and
can-
see in front of me.
I can take
Next
the
meeting,
24
that is
data,
acceptable.
scrub the old ones, add the new ones.
Is
Perfect, I
that the
appreciate
map
it.
that's on the website? If you
Correct.
click the map on the website, it says, click the layer on for short-term
I tried to
rentals.
see it, Heather, I couldn't get it to slow.
So,
It's not the most. It's a little janky.
We're not, let's not go down that road right now. Again, things we can talk about in the future if we can kind of get this major.
And I'll also throw out there that, like this meeting as a special meeting, I am still willing, and I'll just put this out there, to meet more than our regularly once a month scheduled in order to get this policy crafted. I'll make myself available as often as you guys want or are able.
I'm available every week except the second week of July.
I have some trips planned, but I'll zoom in if I have to, or I'll be here physically present. And
I do think that having our next meeting is scheduled is probably the next, giving them a chance to get us some
Sure.
data for us. I also want to challenge everyone on the board during that time. If you think about data that you think is relevant to this conversation, to please reach out to these guys. And make sure we all come prepared with what we want and not be asking for information at the meeting so that we can move forward fast. I want to move forward fast. Like I just said, I hate moving fast on stuff like this, but I think it's important. Bob,
Is there something we need from?
If I can provide useful information, if you recall something that will be useful to this general
you
conversation.
should have like a percentage.
short-term rental list is kind of what I was looking through my stuff, trying to find that you have the neighborhood breakdown and how many are in there.
Yeah.
Does that?
We're not taking public.
Does that have a percentage on that and everything?
We might. I'm okay with taking public comment at the end of the meeting before we go into executive session with a quick one, but we're not gonna do it in the middle of this discussion.
And public comment would require a majority of the board to make an amendment to the agenda by voting whether or not. Well, we can hold off on that until later.
Let's get through the business and then
Yeah.
we'll vote on that. I'd love to hear from you guys. I just, at the moment, we're trying to get through this and get fast track on it. We do really appreciate you guys showing up, trust me. All right, anything else anyone's got to say on this matter before we move on to the new business? Cool. New business, approval of resolution 2026-09, approving a short-term rental compliance and enforcement software contract.
All right. I mocked up some notes on this contract. If you want to follow along, I'll point out the page that I'm referring to. That makes it more useful potentially. Obviously the front one's a cover page. Subscription services. The bulk cost of this item is tax and license administration, tax portal, SGR registration portal, things that come with it. And the support from the Numo side on all those items. It goes up at a base rate. It's about 5% ish I believe there's an option that we have if the number is shown to be substantially in less than 400 units, that the rate, there is a clause in there to change that we can change that rate or renegotiate, but it's that's set with that 400 as the baseline, up to 400 properties. So that's something to keep in mind. I will note my primary cause to note that I'm a little up in the air about is the fact that there is a rate of that the NUMA will receive for discovery of this year and previous years unremitted taxes, both licensed and unlicensed short-term rentals. That is something that I am exploring the two other companies I've talked to, if they offer that, and if so, is that a flat rate instead of the percentage? There's arguments to be made on either side of whether or not that incentivizes aggressive pursual of those back taxes to receive that information. But I don't love that percentage and the existing, yes, to be an excessive extra cost. And I want to make sure that is noted because the licensed operation, as far as I'm aware, I could be misquoting this. It is a 3 years of payment this year and the following 2 years that are eligible for review for possible underpayment for back taxes. So that could add up. Obviously, right now we don't have the capability to go after that at all, really, in terms of our administrative staff and the complicated act that it takes to do that work. That is a lot of information that you need to gather in the undertaking and legal proceedings, things of that nature. So it is a difficult thing for the town to have considered to do in any capacity. The towns that typically do this have large, sophisticated staff to do that work. And obviously, regardless of if we onboard someone, that is not particularly a realistic outcome to be able to obtain all of the back taxes with the staff that we would have. But that is something I want to make clear. That's my primary thing that I have some concern with on this contract. And the compliance auditing, I need to make sure to figure out whether or not that is something that's done in above and beyond to make sure every aspect is in compliance with the town instead of just what the software does as an inherent model. As far as I understand, that is the case where that's a manual review where they literally go in and do all of it, tax literally everything down to the bottom. And this allows for non-renewal at least if I provide a written notice at least 30 days prior to the expiration of the current term. The term is annual. So when that is signed, that comes into the term. So there is a period of non-renewal that is available, even though this does show a 3-year model. So that is an option. So I'll make sure that is very clear.
As long as we notify them 30 days before.
Correct. I need to.
And new term started, we can get out of contract.
Yes. I need to confirm that because there is another clause that I believe is not entirely related that says 90 days. So I need to figure out which one of those is the proper term. But yes, in either case, we do have that ability. Yes. And let's see. And there's more than contingency fees about the professional services, which would include that remittance discovery fees. So it depends. I need to get more information on how that splits out in terms of also the interest that is accrued on that back taxes, because that may also be a substantial amount of revenue. If you apply, say believe the base is a 1.5% per month. That is a substantial amount of additional money if they pull 2 to 3 years back. I already talked about that renewal term. Just making sure there's anything else.
And they're going to come to you for that 3 years back for the information.
That is, they handle on their end as part of that fee. We provide the base information to start about the rentals that we have. but it is incumbent upon them to do the actual discovery.
Cross-reference the two of them together.
Yes.
Figure out.
So that is part of the incentive, I suppose they're claiming that percentage there is their sweat equity to doing all of that verification on the back end on their half.
And then that's where they're getting that.
Correct, which is why they claim that to be a relevant cost.
Let's talk about that.
Numa collects. So yeah, they do the whole collection as well.
So this total estimate is 102 for the first year.
That is for the software and the full work done outside of particularly that tax delinquency work.
That's additional.
Correct, because that is considered to be in excess of the scope.
And the setup fee is just for the town, a one-time fee? of $25?
Correct. That is correct, yes.
And then technically they only take $255 per rental. Is that on top of the 102?
No, that's on top of the four, if you exceed 400
Oh, okay.
properties.
If we are to, if they find an egregious additional number, that's where that comes into play.
Is there a version where they just do the software part of this?
That is correct. They can't. There is an option to do so. That would require full. They can flag things, but that would require the town staff to do all the work related to compliance and enforcement.
What I noticed in here is it said it takes 60 days, I think, to get it going. So that kind of.
And believe it or not, that is by far the shortest time frame.
Well, I'm sure. That's short for software.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I was quoted 6 months on one of the options.
I have no doubt. Software is a
So,
nightmare
yeah.
for that kind of implementation.
Yeah, standard implementation for payment also is about 12 weeks as well to get that whole tax system online.
So if we were to hire somebody to kind of do, if they were just flagging, which John was asking, could we downgrade our package? Does that make sense? A downgrade to just,
Yes.
cool.
Yes,
That would be,
that
if
is
we are
the-
gonna hire somebody, we get them online, and 6 months from now, we think they can handle this,
Yes.
then we could just downgrade to that level.
I will say the only caveat would be that it would be during that term renewal.
Yeah,
At the end of the year, how, yes. But I would say that I would hesitate to recommend just applying the software, because the software without the full scale of compliance work necessary to make it useful will just provide data that
Then no
is
one's
not actionable data with
Oh, yeah,
staff
we're-
capacity. Even if we hire an additional person, potentially this related back tax issue and the amount of non-compliance at this current moment will make it quite challenging to guarantee any reasonable amount of enforcement and compliance to the extent that is reasonable. But I do see a possible avenue down the line that if we get things our ducks in a row,
Yeah, so that's
the
that
maintenance is
I'm not talking
very
about.
different, yes, than the other.
Once we kind of like get where we should have been anyways, we
Yes.
reassess where we are.
Yes.
I'll ask you a question you don't know the answer to, Chad, but I'm listening on.
Sure.
In your short time here.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're at with compliance as far as tax remittance? All these things. Are we hiring an absolute bulldog company who's just gonna come in here and
That is the possibility. The argument to be made for, I don't agree with the 50%. I'll say that on my personal opinion of it. The percentage as a fee is to incentivize that bulldog mentality. However, that may not be the route the town wants to go due to the cost of that percentage. There is, I will say there is a large amount of money that's left off the table because we have flimsy at best ways to check if someone's actually properly remitting taxes. And besides, that would take us manually verifying every individual property on that amount that is provided. Our current software does not have the capability to do so. That we do the licensing through.
So if we go on some of our past compliance, right, that we think is pretty low,
Yes.
do we think we're gonna have a pretty low compliance rate on tax to bills?
for the last 3 years?
My assumption would be yes. I don't believe this is something that was when I came on, all of a sudden people started stop
No,
remitting
yeah.
their taxes in an appropriate fashion.
It's 100% self-employed.
It would,
That worries me a little bit.
it would require
What is
us
it?
auditing, yes. It would require auditing on the town side to conduct that, and that would be very difficult to, because you have.
We don't have the bandwidth. Just like if you had to tell the IRS what you want. Are you gonna be like all of it? And sometimes they tell you that's wrong.
But that is a tricky space for the town to be in, because I do believe that we are not capitalizing on the amount of money the town should truly be receiving. And part of this delinquency is the potential that it captures the non-licensed STRs as that part of the delinquency, that they haven't been remitting any taxes and have been operational.
Or we go after them. We went after one of those.
We do.
So they would flag them for us. Do we still get to go after them and get all those? We're getting 50% of that. So if someone didn't pay for those last 3 years, let's say it's $15,000, we're giving them $25,000.
There's a possibility.
Or were they paying? Because we have to go to court for that. Am I wrong? Usually. Are they paying for the lawyer? Or is Bob knowing?
The understanding is that with that service, it includes the lawyer, the work that is done on a legal perspective.
That doesn't sound awful then.
I mean, it's better. It's more tolerable. I don't love that. No, I hate 50%. So everyone knows that. That seems like I'm more of like a 20, 25 maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggle with, I mean, to come into compliance and to say, we're jumping through all these hoops to come up with a system that's gonna work well, and we're gonna do our job, and code enforcement, we're gonna do these things. And then to go back and say, you're on the hook for 3 years before this, and whatever that number is, we have the legal bill. I struggle with it a little bit.
I struggle with the people who were close. People who were paying and maybe not paying their full amount. I have zero issues with the people who weren't paying.
We weren't paying it up. Right.
They can pay us.
As I understand it, there may be an avenue to say there is a reasonable margin of error that can be installed with
I
like
think
this.
that's
Just,
important.
yeah.
Does anyone else disagree with that? Like, I don't. If someone's close, I'm not gonna do you as $150 in the last 3 years. But like, if someone's like, you owe us $50,000
per month.
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
That's the lovely part about
This
that.
is written, I mean, there's a lot in there.
I read through it twice, and I don't feel like I fully digested it. Just so you know, yeah.
I can't guarantee that there will be a different model of operations, but I am trying to source additional quotes, because this was the only model that on face value said, this is what we do. I think Granicus does it with a partner platform. So I would need to understand what how that partner platform plays in this larger ecosystem with that delinquency.
Sorry, and I guess if we vote on this, are we going with the one we see in front of us, or your best assessment once you're ready to pull the trigger?
Well, it would be the difference between a resolution would be the contract, but the motion to approve can have. Yeah, it gives authority to have certain leeway of trying to negotiate.
Yeah. I mean, it's just curious. I would,
And I think
And are these guys all or nothing? Are these guys good or not?
I mean, they're a large conglomerate, so it's maybe, but maybe not. They may believe they have their leverage to do so, which is part of the reason why I'm trying to source alternatives.
this is the software that you said is already in use by a municipality right here in St.
Correct.
County.
For face value, all three of the top companies I've talked to are used within in some account at various levels, though. This 360 scope of management is not something that other towns have need or have implemented. Exactly. So we're in a bit of a challenging scenario to figure out where do we want to go with this. If we was just the software, it could be the software without teeth. If it's this, we may be providing revenue in excess of what we would like to back to a company that's doing the work for us.
I guess I'll lean on Bob.
What's our fees? What's our new fees generated?
What's our new fees?
Per bedroom.
I would need to look at that exact number. I believe our current amount we've generated is about $180,000 this given year, but that is.
So that would offset a lot of this.
Yeah.
There's other expenses to consider that.
However, my understanding being the delinquency rate and the unlicensed STRs will make up a large percentage of this.
I mean, I can only imagine.
Yeah, if there's 40.
I mean, yeah, there's 40. I mean, that could be a few $100,000, especially over 3 years. If you've been operating an SCR and we haven't caught you,
So this tax
and then we
though,
take your license for sure.
because the companies like Airbnb, they collect the state taxes and stuff. But then Blue River tax is paid separately. Is this getting all of those taxes or just that Blue River lodging tax?
It's focused on that 3.4% that we have as a component of the lot.
And there's no like viewing of what the state, because I know the state pays Breck and Breck pays us, right?
The
That was my
Airbnb and
understanding
Verbo
of it.
remit to Breckenridge, and the problem is that those larger companies have aggregate data and not individual data, which does not make it feasible to parse out what is Blue River and what's Breckenridge.
Oh, 100%.
Lump
That's the
sum,
Blue
which
River
yeah.
houses are listed as Breckenridge.
So that's the challenge. It would have to be an institutional change on the company side. In order.
Yeah, no, I was just curious if they were gonna.
Yeah.
I know that some lump sums go to Brecken and some comes back here. I know state taxes work that way.
So would this assist with that though? Because this does have that geospatial component that you talked about. So
Yes.
then can we go back and say, this says we had 180 days in the,
Yes.
and that's what percentage of tax we should be getting. So
Yes, that is correct.
we should be looking at this amount and we got this much.
Breckenridge will do that.
Well, it'll also make people actually list Blue River though, because a lot of Blue River residents list Breckenridge because there's no flag because you share a zip code.
I don't know if that makes a difference in the way they collect, because I think they collect based on zip
Well, it
code.
makes a difference for us.
Yeah, but as far as like a platform is concerned, some platforms are paying. It just depends. Like, it will help with us enforcing it if it says Blue River as opposed to saying Breckenridge.
The enforcement is correct. The remittance is a challenge because until the day it comes that Blue River receives their own zip code, that's a
Well, this
relatively good
happens with
point.
the county as well, right?
Yeah.
Because there's counties getting.
Yeah, they have their own challenges, but they also have software and staff to handle it, so they can kind of thread that needle. Yeah.
This is definitely the handle of it.
I feel pretty good about it, especially if Chad can try to negotiate some of those other things if he can.
And I would be more than willing to give you the ability, if you find a better one, to go with that one. I think I trust your judgment on this. Does anyone feel differently on that? Like if he finds a better deal for us? Or a better platform that he's more comfortable using, I guess?
I'm concerned about a 6-month time frame versus 60 days.
Oh, 100%. I don't think a 6-month, I would trust Chad to know that that's probably why they're out of the discussion.
Yeah.
It's
I
6
mean,
months.
is it wise to say like, okay, come with final options in 2 weeks of July and fully vote?
You're good.
I'll try. I can try to put the rush on it and see if I can get good information from the other companies that I've talked to. There are really only 3 major players in the game,
That's
so
surprising.
the town can realistically utilize outside of our own native systems.
I mean, the only thing I'm remotely uncomfortable with here is the 50%. Is that anybody else have any other flags that they pulled up that they really think are? Nothing else being like,
And even at that, I mean, the amount of work to go back 3 years to try to.
we don't have staff to do it. So if we're gonna have to see the money, we're gonna have to pay some of it.
If we get 50% back, it's more than we're getting back now without it.
My question
100%
being,
more
I
than
suppose,
Right.
if the board is comfortable, there are other options, I suppose, that I can try to say of like a higher base fee and a lower percentage of revenue received, like the delinquency that we'd give to them. So like if we had a higher initial cost and a lower percentage, is that something the board would have a preference towards?
I mean, honestly, I'd rather have the lower upfront cost. What do you guys think? Because what happens to come back and there's 2?
Just like Ted said, I mean, 50% of something
It's better than
is
50% of nothing.
better than 100% of nothing, which is what we have.
We don't have the bandwidth to go after that 100%.
Right.
I'd love to negotiate it down, and I guess as someone who's never dealt with, probably think it's even negotiable.
I mean, anything is negotiable. I might really get stonewalled, but it's
I
possible.
think you should at least ask.
I think we should. I mean, 100%, right?
About.
You don't bet.
Yeah.
They can't tell you no if you don't ask the
Yeah.
questions, so ask them.
But if they say no, are we comfortable with going forward with the software?
I think so, yes.
I guess anyone blatantly opposed to that.
No, I think we need it.
I don't think it's a
So-
question if we did.
Final decision is July,
Are we making that?
or we're making it now.
I think we should make it now. If you can negotiate it, that's fantastic. At least it expedites the process, right?
The only question being, if you agree, if there's a motion to approve, does that permit discussing with other companies and having that conversation if there's a better option that materializes?
Authorize the town manager to continue negotiation to find the best deal for the town through this vendor or another, and to authorize him, when he finds that deal, to execute the contract and report back to you.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
That's it. So a second, right?
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. So thanks for that work, Chad. I know can't be that much fun. As someone who shopped some software for a couple of years, it's
So Chad, once we get into this deal, sometimes, you learn as you use it. And can you ask that question too, as far as, or try to understand if that 30-day period before we renew each year, if that's a renegotiation, if there's an opportunity to renegotiate, or is it just cancel or move forward?
I believe that there is an option for renegotiation based off of the number of units. I think that's the stipulation. If there are less units being patrolled, that might be the avenue to pursue. I don't know if we could get it on a per basis, a unit basis
Yeah,
change,
fair.
but if we have less units, then it's being assessed. That might be the difference.
We just gotta jump into this and go for it.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, really, it's a year-long contract, right? Like, if we decide in 8 months we hate this, we can do that.
It's shown as a 3-year, but it has the
It has
option.
a 30-day option, as I said, like, we're coming into a year.
and Bob, have you looked at that clause in the contract,
Yes.
or is that in your? Is it,
I have some changes that I'll work with Chad on.
okay,
Perfect.
I mean, I'm not a fan of saying, we'll give you half of the taxes that you collect. We'll give you an amount equal to them. There's some subtle differences. You don't give people taxes. We don't give our taxes to private companies. We can give them an amount that it's equal to. So there's some subtle change in the contract to make it more palatable and look like less of us giving taxes away. If you don't do, you give them out an amount equal. Fee equal.
sorry to digress a little bit. The other software, do they give this option too?
That's what they didn't initially offer that as a platform. However, as I understand it, there are opportunities to do that. I believe that, as I understand it, I provide this for you because this is the integrated option. There are partners that exist. Yes. So they have partnerships, but not integration. So that's my only hesitancy. But if there is a flat rate model versus a percentage, that is something that I would certainly be
So
interested.
based on these, I don't know if you have this information, but those partnerships, they may not integrate into their software, but they have a partnership with a company that does.
Through their software, yes.
Do you know what percentage they say they're gonna take of whatever that?
That's what I'm hoping I can gather more information on. I haven't gotten specific numbers yet. And I'm hoping to do so in advance of this meeting, 21st of July, that we could really have, hey, let's focus on this. Let's move forward with this avenue. But if there's something that's there that is clear and obvious,
And if you're leaning towards this particular program, it's 50%, it's giving us some heartburn, and you find that there's a different percentage with one of these other software companies, even though they're using a separate company, it might be a starting point to say, we like your company.
Yeah.
But this is giving a lot of the trustees some concern, heartburn. This is what this company over here is willing to do. Can you match that? And we'll just sign the deal.
yeah,
And see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to have this in place and working by December 1st. That'd be awesome. I mean, that's really like the goal, right? Like, I mean, we missed summer. Well, we missed the summer season on this. We did. But I think that, like, even Jan 1st, but I'm just knowing that that's kind of when
realistically, even with that 2-month window that we did last year for renewals,
Yeah.
that would also make it challenging if we even get to December 1st.
Hey,
And say
we're
we have a
so far ahead
1-month
of where
compressed
we were
window.
4 years ago. It's amazing.
All right. So we've gotten that. I move
Yeah.
to have public comment.
A second.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Paul Summer.
Blue Grouse Trail. Number one, thank you. And 4 years past of thank yous. This is something that I've had a concern with as a short-term rental for a long time. And it's unfortunate that it took so long, but applaud you guys for jumping in with both feet and for you saying, let's get our ass off this and make it happen. I think that's really important. And every one of you have valid comments on where it goes. I won't add to any of that. I won't give you my side of the fence or not. But what my concern is public involvement. Just the, I think it was maybe on Friday in the town packet, not town packet, but in the website, it had the agenda for today's meeting. And in that, it did say there was public comment. However, when I pulled this up just this morning, saw that there is no opportunity for public comment. It specifically says the new direction that no public comment unless you guys decide on it. Okay, if I'm reading this from why should I show up? Okay, so, but that's why I'm here, because I want to be able to say something. The number one thing is, again, there should always be an opportunity for the public to say thank you for the work you're doing. So then the next part of that is, how do I, as a citizen, comma, resident, underlined exclamation, 40-something years, give my comments to you guys? You had a great discussion of where you're going to be going on this policy and emphasize the word policy versus implementation and enforcement, because that's what you should be doing. And compliments to Bob and the way he wrote up that memo to emphasize you're looking at policy. So how do I get involved with that? I didn't hear any dates for special meetings. I want to know, do I need to get cell phone coverage at the bottom of the Grand Canyon in the next couple of weeks where I intend to be? Or if I need to be on a beach someplace, and how do I contact you guys? Or do I need to write a large dissertation in the next few days before I leave on a vacation? And so it's how do I give you guys good information so that you can deliberate, what decisions you're going to be making. So I don't expect you an answer on that now. It's something that needs to happen, though, is how does the public get more involved? And it's a little bit unfortunate that through the way the current process is for public involvement, if you're going to give something in writing, you need to give it to you in writing almost 2 weeks before the meeting. And sometimes we don't even know what the agenda is. So there needs to be a better way of getting the public involved. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I make sure I read all emails before our meeting. So anything you email, I can speak for everybody, but the emails, I love the emails personally. Like, I'll read every email. I check emails before I get to every meeting. So even if there's something that's sent late, I will definitely have read it. Maybe not digested the whole thing.
I do as well.
Definitely.
I read them before the meeting as well.
Anyone else?
But you want to get my 10-page attachment to your email then?
Can you summarize?
That'll be nothing compared to what Bob.
Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest.
I think over about a page. It's probably.
Yeah, I want to echo what Paul said. Appreciate you guys, really. Like, this is long overdue. And, and I apologize for laughing out loud when Ted mentioned, you got elected to do this, right? You're talking about surveys. Everybody wants public opinion. But you got it. This is representative government. You were elected to do the job. If we don't like what we hear, we'll come in and we'll scream at your public hearing, because there'll be one when you go to adopt it. So, make decisions. They're not going to be what everybody likes, but it really, I apologize, but it's the healthiest discussion I think the room has seen in a long time. So it's really good discussion. So I did have a couple notes, but you know, and obviously, if you're gonna try to craft some kind of policy between now and your next meeting, and obviously that won't be the final version. But I would say, right, like if you're gonna talk about caps, don't look at like cap change by neighborhood, talk about zones, that's crazy. Everything that's been done down valley has been, I think, not well executed. Zones, not good. Even by neighborhoods, you're talking about by neighborhoods. Like, what are you gonna do? Sacrifice the Crown because it already has a ton, or Lakeshore Loop, or Timber Creek because there's a lot in there. We don't want to go below that number. Look at the town as a whole. We're all residential. So, I mean, you don't have to do what I say. You don't have to think what I think, and you certainly don't have to agree. And I respect Barry and John enough to say, like, I know what you were saying last month, and you were concerned you missed meetings, and you had second thoughts about what you voted. I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of you, and I like you both. And so it's not, I don't want this to be a wedge. I'm not anti-short-term rental, but I'm certainly not pro them either. So as a member of the public, we have to have regulations. People have to follow them. And I think that's what started this whole discussion, was people weren't following what you guys, minus Heather, adopted in November. So, if you're talking to cap, right, I always thought 30, 35 tops. You have your own numbers. But for those people, I don't hate Barry's idea of like minimum number or max number of bookings. I don't necessarily like 35, but that's just me, right? But you're gonna, like, how are you gonna craft a survey to get that info from us, the public? You're gonna have to come up with something that you think is reasonable, reading public comment or getting it while you're looking at those policies, and then incorporate it if you see the need. One thing you could do, I would definitely look at actual numbers of licenses. Don't try to consider unlicensed. Who knows what those are? You've all talked about it. They could be 30 days or more. They could be long-term rent. We don't know. We don't. Whatever the town's number is today, because I don't see it, and I went back through like 6 packets, and I can't remember, nor do I trust what it was a year ago. There was a number of 27% forever, and Ted Pilling, Cindy's husband, God rest his soul, right? He was like, when we hit 27%, we want to talk about it. We could never hit the percentage. Why? Because numbers they're just played with. It's just the way accounting is done. But whatever the percent is today, and I don't disagree with you. I don't want to go below, but you could, because you're not going to kill those who don't have it. But if, let's just say we're at 35, you could set it at 40. And then you can step down annually to hit a number you want to get. If you want it at 30 or 35, if you want it at 40 and we're at 50, whatever, step it down annually, because by attrition, you're going to shed some anyway. So, like, do something new that the county hasn't done. You can certainly ask your planning commission, because we can work for you, right? It was done down valley through planning, but you don't have to. I think you guys are on the right track, and you've got good momentum. So I think it's good discussion. I could go on, but yeah, I mean, really, thank you for letting us speak, because I did see it when I downloaded the packet yesterday. And you have an item on the agenda that you acted on, so you should definitely have public comment. But a work session, you don't have to take it. But it was there, and then you took it away, so that was weird. So, but thank y'all. Oh, one other thing in my 4 seconds. If you're worried, you can always, if you think, if we just open it up, we're going to get inundated, you could just let that happen and then use it or lose it. So, like, if people aren't using it, like, I pulled one in Breck I've never used, because I was like, if I don't get it, I'll never get it, and I'm not going to give it up. I pay $900 a year nearly, but use it or lose it. So after 1 year, those who don't use it, dump them off the rolls. I mean, get creative. It's your town. Make it up. Thank you.
Thank you. You no problem.
Well, I just want to say that I do appreciate the effort that you're putting into this. It has been long overdue. And if it were easy, it probably would have been done already. And I have a personal situation with an investor who purchased the property next to my home, primarily because she could not find any licensing to start her short-term rental anywhere else, so she purchased here. So that was discouraging for me. I've lived there close to 20 years, and the issues that I'm experiencing now have given me second thoughts on whether I want to stay in this community or not. And if you look up the definition of community and you look up the definition of residential, that should be a North Star, including your mission statement to make the right decisions for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
All right, I'm gonna close public comments. We're gonna go into executive session, guys. Appreciate you guys showing up as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank you.